Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 469. I am Peter, and joining me as always is Matt.
Hey, cracking.
Discord cut some of your high off because I think it thought you went too loud. Is it? No, this guy must be censored.
I mean, it knows. I mean, AI is going to be our overlord, so just accept now.
I don't want to accept. That sounds awful. So yes, welcome everyone. It's the DC Comics podcast. We get together, we talk about the books we read this week. Coming up on today's show, we have Absolute Superman issue 10, Absolute Green Lantern issue 5, Batgirl 10, Birds of Prey 24, JSA 10, Poison Ivy 35, Cheetah and Cheshire Rob the Justice League issue 1, Resurrection Man Quantum Karma 5, Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2. Although one of those books I did not read that I had been reading, and one of those books Matt did not read that he had been reading, so there'll be a little bit of a trade of who read what in some of the later books. Also, I got a Patreon book, Batman Planetary issue 1. I was informed that was next in the lineage, not the next regular issue, so I checked that out. I did get a little bit worried when I saw it had a deluxe hardcover all to itself. But this is one of these cases where it's a 48-page one-shot, and the deluxe just has the entire script or something after it, just to pad it out up to 100 pages.
Cool, I like that.
But yeah, so yeah, that's what's coming up on today's show. Plus, we got some Patreon vote winners and stuff to announce for things we'll be doing over the next few weeks, so that'll be fun too. Before we get into any of the comic book stuff, though, Matt, how was your week?
Pretty hot. We had a pretty mild summer as far as Vegas is concerned, and the temperatures cranked up this week, so that was kind of miserable. But I finally rewatched the Matt Reeves Batman.
Oh yeah,
for the first time since the theater, and oh man, it's. The problems I remember having with it are still there. However, kind of knowing where the story goes, it massages a lot of those. It's still solid. So, I forgot that, what's his name? Golem played Alfred.
Andy Serkis, yes.
Yes, there we go. Forgot his name. Forgot he played Golem. So, but I'm going to start the Penguin soon. Because I never got around to it. So that was one of the prerequisites. I wanted to revisit the Matt Reeves Batman. And yeah, he's still my favorite part of the movie is Penguin. So excited to jump into that.
Yeah, the movie was very good. It's obviously there's critiques that get thrown around about they keep not doing the more fantastical stuff from Batman. They like to keep it gritty. But that's... I think that while that's a fair complaint, if you want things like Clayface and you want things like Mr. Freeze and so on, I get the critique. But I do think there are lots of Batman comics that are very much in that tone, in that gritty kind of crime thing. So it still feels true to what a lot of the comics are. It's just not hitting every type of Batman comic, So it still feels true to a lot of it.
Yeah, and it feels like a Batman that's still going, figuring things out, right? So I do like that aspect, and after seeing Superman as many times as I have in theaters, I do feel like if they wanted to, they could put those worlds together. I don't feel it's that different of a world. It's just Superman is dealing with the more fantastical elements, right? And for whatever reason, with Batman, we just dealt with this really gritty kind of stuff. But I could fully see that Metropolis and that Gotham coexisting. It's not that far-fetched. So
I mean, they're not going to do that by all accounts. They're going to have a different Batman for the universe, but it is what it is. No, that's cool. No, I mean, I still haven't rewatched that actually, but I did really like it when it came out. It was a very different flavor of Batman.
I still have issues with the way that they did Riddler. I'm not a big fan of the Zodiac kind of Riddler. I mean, it fits with the movie, so it's not tonally wrong. I just, as someone that enjoys the Riddler as a character, it's a bit off. But Paul Dano still kills it. There's not a weak link in the acting side in that entire film. That said, Selena, Zoe Kravitz is Selena. She's a bit too diminutive to be doing some of those moves and knocking dudes down, but that's comics, right? So
I mean, yeah, if you ever get a 12-year-old knocking dudes out in a Robin outfit, I think that question's really going to start to come up. But that's fine.
So, but yeah, it's still very solid. Not my favorite Batman movie still. I mean, that still belongs to Nolan, but it's still very solid.
Yeah. I mean, what have I got? Actually, comic book related. I'm excited to read next week's books because I'll have a new tablet by then. And yeah, I'd been thinking for a while about getting a bigger one because, like, I've been, how long have I had my current one? I don't know, like 7. I've had my current one for like 6 or 7 years, and before that, the iPad I had was the exact same size. So I've had a 10-inch tablet for over a decade, and I really wanted to go bigger. I wanted to have the full page be at least as big as an actual single issue comic. So I've got a 12.7-inch tablet coming during the week, which I'm excited about. So that'll be cool. So that's good. Also, I hadn't checked a long time. It's always worth mentioning. But let's say this enough on the show. Actually, is that if you do like the show, you want help. Is obviously there's all the usual things we see like Patreon, which is obviously money's great. Love money. But if you want to support in other ways, obviously liking and all that on YouTube and commenting is good. But one of the things we don't say enough is to review us on like Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app you're using. But I did look at some reviews, and there's not a ton of them, but there's some, and there's a couple of more recent ones that I hadn't seen before. And like there's a 1-star one, which is obviously dragging the average down a bit. So if you want to go give us 5 stars, that'd be good. But what was funny to me is a really recent 5-star review. In fact, I mean, people to remember the references that are about to be made in this review that I'm bringing up could probably pinpoint the exact episode like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But basically, the person complained that we hate everything because we talked about movies we hated and then complained about Guggenheim TV shows, and then presumably the first issue we talked about on that episode we hated, which was probably Hattush or something like that. And said, "Oh, you hate everything. Maybe you just have bad taste." I'm like, I'm sure if you'd listened to like another comic review later in the episode, you might have heard one that we were positive on. I love many things.
We might hate things, but we make that hating entertaining. Okay?
That's taste dependent. Like, because there was another review actually that said they really liked the show. It was very complimentary, but the one thing they did say, this was a review. I only seen it today, but it was from sometime last year. The one part of the show they didn't like was our reviews of Zdarsky's Batman, just purely because it was like always negative, not because they liked it or cared about it, just because simply it was a really negative review compared to all the other positive ones. I get that. I totally do. What I recommend is the timestamps are there for a reason. If there's a book review that we're always shitting on and you don't want to hear us shit on it, I get it. Just go to the next thing. What I recommend actually is I use Podcast Addict, and I'm sure there's other apps that will do it as well. But Podcast Addict literally lets you skip chapters using the timestamps as the information to like do that. So you can just skip to the next review, and it would. It's just a tap of a button as opposed to actually having to find the time on the timeline. So I recommend it. It's okay to skip one of the reviews if you don't want to hear us talking. Because there's definitely people who are on podcasts or YouTube shows that I really like generally, but there's like one topic or one subject that comes up, and it's not like a serious thing. Like that's something that I'd like, want to cancel them before. But there's like one like movie series or something where I just can't stand them talking about it because it's just so antithetical to how I feel that I cannot listen to them. So I'll just skip those parts. That's fine. We've talked about how there's a couple of books that'll pretty much always stay. Yeah. Because the thing is that I happen to know there's enough of our core audience who kind of enjoys some of the misery. Maybe they wouldn't like it if that's all the show was, but like in concentrated doses, if typically it's mostly being positive, but there's, or at least if it's mostly positive, but if there's like a dud issue, we might be critical on that one. But if it's mostly being positive, there is an audience who really likes the one kind of book that's just there to be shat on. Like that, there is an audience that serves. So if you don't like that, I totally get it. Just skip to the next review.
That's why I read Hatouche. It's for those people. for those sickos.
So yeah, new tablets coming. I'm excited about that, and I am to read it wasn't just this show. I read all the reviews that were around for all the shows that I do, and they all. Do you know what's annoying? They all have one-star review dragging down the average, and I was like, oh, strangle you.
I think that's
fools.
Yeah, I think that's just podcasts across the board, right?
No, it probably is, but that's why I'm just encouraging people, go give us 5 stars, drag the average up.
Yeah. What was? Can you say what a good one was from Screams with Tim? Like, was there a particularly fun review?
This one was a little bit older, but there was one saying that they love how earnestly Tim defends Leprechaun every chance he gets. So, for as far as a fun review comment goes, that would be the one that sticks out.
That warms my heart.
Yeah. I mean, some of them are just. I mean, they're good reviews. They give us 5 stars and say these guys know their stuff, or these guys are entertaining, or whatever, and it's just a simple statement. So nothing exciting to report, but nice to see, and helps boost the what's the word I'm looking for? The discoverability of the shows. That's what it helps. That's the word I was trying to search for. Anyway, let's get into things. We've got the ComiXology top 10, the list formerly known as the Kindle rankings, those which is formerly known as the ComiXology top 10. I'm operating on little sleep here, okay? So blurby, wordy nonsense might come out my mouth occasionally. You've been warned. All right, Matt, what's your guess for number 1 in the Kindle rankings as of right now at the time of recording?
Absolute Superman 10.
That is correct. Absolute Superman 10 is indeed number 1. Number 2 is One World Under Doom. Number 3 is Absolute Green Lantern. 4 is Captain America. 5 is Ultimate Wolverine. 6 is Uncanny X-Men. 7 is Amazing Spider-Man. 8 is Daredevil Cold Day in Hell. 9 is Storm. And then 10 is JSA. That is, obviously DC had 1 and 3 and 10, but it's a very Marvel-heavy top 10. Looking further down to see where the rest of the DC books fell, Cheetah in Cheshire was number 12. The Godzilla Kong book is 15. And then Birds of Prey is 20. Batgirl's 21. Resurrection Man's 25. So they're kind of spread out through the top 25, give or take. And then Poison Ivy's somewhere off all the ones I've got loaded. So, yeah. Yeah, I guess that's it. They're pretty spread out. I mean, some of those Marvel books that are there in the top 10 are quite big. So, I guess you can't be too mad at it.
D1 with Doom, and you got some of the Ultimate books and Captain America. So, yeah, those are pretty big names.
Yeah. Oh, Captain America's an issue 2 as well, so it's a relatively new series. So, it's still kind of on that early upswing. But yeah. So, and Storm's Storm's issue. I was going to say Storm's an issue 1, but it's not. It's an issue 11. My eye was just playing a trick in the corner. So that's that. So before we get to the books today, actually, so last week we mentioned we're going to do these new Patreon votes. One for a series, which will get a 1-issue review per month on Patreon, and the other vote is a Patreon vote, but it'll be for a book we do on the show during the month. Now, going forward, the vote will be in the last week of the month for the following month, but for this first one, we just kind of snuck it in at the start of the month so we could get started with it this month. So I've got results, and I didn't even tell Matt what was in these votes, so he's going to get lots of surprises here. So the Patreon series that we're going to do, 1 issue per month, the options were Infinite Crisis, Superman Birthright, and Batgirl Year 1. And the winner of that vote, with 55.6% of the vote, was Batgirl Year 1. So we will be reviewing that issue by issue for Patreon and soon YouTube members. As soon as we're very close to the YouTube membership, thing been unlocked on YouTube. We're like 6 subscribers away, so that will probably be launching very soon. So cool. So that's what we're doing for Patreon. You can get access to that 1 issue a month. We'll be doing that sometime later on. in the month. I think we're going to record one of these next week. Which one it's going to be, I'm not sure. And then for the other vote, which is the book we'll do on the show that everyone will get to hear, this will be a mix of things that we're maybe going to drop, so you get a chance to save it, maybe an issue 1 that we weren't that interested in, and there was a classic book option here as well, which is kind of will slot in and out of there as the third option as a backup if there's not enough interesting things to put on there. But the options for this were Robin and Batman Jason Todd issue 2, because we didn't get around to that last month, and we're not necessarily ruling out that we'll catch up and do issue 3, but the chances of us doing issue 2 in the show, since we didn't get to it last week, were pretty slim. So I thought, I'll give them the option to sort of make us do that if they really want to hear our thoughts on it. Second option was Immortal Legend Batman issue 1. This is the anime Batman that's coming out this month, which I had no intentions of reading. So you had the chance to make me, as well as Matt. And then the classic option was Batgirl issue 1. This is the Cassandra Cain series from 2000, just 2000, I think.
Are we about to get a load of Batgirl?
Well, this vote was much closer than the other one. This was very, very close, and it went back and forth, because every so often I'd check and I'd see it kind of shifting. This at times, at a glance, looked very three-way split in terms of the numbers. But one did edge out ultimately, right? So the winner with 40% of the vote, so just over the third, really, was indeed Batgirl issue 1. More people wanted to read that and talk about that. Second was Immortal Legend Batman, and then last place was Robin and Batman Jason Todd. The least amount of people wanted that. But to be fair, it was still, it was like 40%, 33.3%, and 26.7%. They were very equal split. So yeah, we're getting double dose of Batgirl this month. And the plan is that if there's 3 options for the vote that are kind of natural, it'll just be the 3 options that you expect. But if there's only like 2 interesting options, then Batgirl issue 2 will go on there as the third option. So there's kind of like a sort of safety backup pick for people who are not interested in the other things. So that is the plan going forward. So everyone at the $5 tier and up on Patreon can vote on these, and you'll get access to that Batgirl Year 1 set of reviews. When we get towards the end of that, in about a year's time, we'll have another vote for whatever replaces it. So.
Yeah, so Batgirl Year 1's the 03 series, right? That's Chuck Dixon.
It's Chuck Dixon, yeah. 03 sounds right.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I believe it's a 12-issue series, but if I remember correctly.
Okay. Yeah, I would just, because I'm vaguely familiar with it. I've never read it before, so this will be a first time.
That's good. That's exciting. I've read it before, but that's exciting that you've not.
Yeah. So I just wanted to double check that's the one.
Yeah, because
cool.
When I was picking the options, I was like, okay, I don't want to just put 3 Superman books. I was tempted to because the movie came out recently, so it's like kind of relevant. But I thought a lot of Superman's like standalone series are all just different versions of the origin, and that seems like a really boring vote. And I was like, okay, well, I'll do a completely different character, and then maybe like a Justice League thing, which kind of became Infinite Crisis. I considered Kingdom Come at one point, but then I thought, that's 2 Mark Waid books. That feels a bit weird and lopsided. Yeah. So. That's why I landed on what I did. But Batgirl Year 1 was kind of the runaway winner for that one, which I was a little surprised by. I thought Superman Birthright might take it, but
I'm not upset because I've heard good things about Year 1. I mean, I would have loved to reread, the Birthright for like the 4th time, but that's okay. Something new is always cool.
Yeah, I mean, just because we're not doing it this time doesn't mean it won't happen.
Yeah.
Down the line. So. That is the plan. So we will be getting to those over the course of August. So we'll look forward to them. And like I said, the votes for September's, or the one vote for September's issue that we'll do in the show, we'll call it the Patreon choice issue. That vote will be up in the last week of August, give or take. If I remember to set it up before whatever episode comes before that, I'll maybe say what the options are. Before it goes up, but I won't promise that because there's a very, very, very good chance I will forget. But that's what's going on. In fact, there's a couple of things today that may end up being on that vote actually. So we'll see. in the we're considering dropping, you've got a chance to save it kind of category. There's a couple of options for that today. So we'll get into the books then, shall we? So kicking off today with Absolute Superman issue 10, Jason Aaron writing with Carmine D. Giandomenico on the art. So yeah, next big chapter of this, we've got kind of Superman and actually encountering Ra's al Ghul, although probably one of the things that I liked a lot about this issue is how we don't actually see Superman for a good chunk of it. They really sort of build the mystique of like, oh, he's in the sky, like obviously destroying jets and stuff, but we don't see him. We just see like a red blur in the sky occasionally, and it's all from the perspective of like Raz talking to Brainiac and what's his name? Peacemaker.
Peacemaker.
Yeah. So
not Metallo, as I've been calling him in my brain. Because he's very similar to Metallo, but he's not Metallo.
Well, in this universe, he's similar to Metallo.
Yeah.
Regular universe, not so much, yeah.
No. But no, it definitely gave Superman a sense of wonder, right? Because we're seeing his deeds through the eyes of the people on the ground. So, like, there's just this awe-inspiring, which kind of for the first time in this book that we're getting, because we've very much been in Superman's point of view, right? When he goes to save the people and all that kind of thing. We're seeing it from him. So to see this from the ground, I thought that was a nice change.
Well, I think what's interesting about this issue, especially given that it's the first time we're feeling that sense of like awe and spectacle, but also force of nature and arguably dread, because it's, you know, it's kind of from the bad guy's perspective mostly. Not that Raz is scared. Raz is very much focused on what he's got planned. But I think that leads into what's interesting to me about this issue is that Raz's whole thing here is obviously he wants to claim Superman as his son in the same way that in you know the regular universe he wanted to claim Batman as his like successor kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he's basically wanting Superman to like kill people. He's wanting Superman to prove that he's worthy of being an Al Ghul and do these various things. And a lot of this issue is predicated around that idea of him trying to provoke Superman to the point where when he can, you know, he's like, oh, Superman's taking down all these jets, but then he's like, well, like, are all the pilots dead? And like, no, they're all alive. And like, you know, he's leaving everyone alive. He's not killed anyone. He's like, we'll just have to provoke him further. And that's what leads to him sending out Peacemaker. And Peacemaker thinks he's going to get to kill Superman. He's like, oh, I'm going to take him down this time. But in reality, what Ra's al Ghul is actually doing is like try to give Superman an enemy that he's going to snap and be willing to kill. So once Superman does show up and we get things more from his perspective, and he refers back to the little flashback we get at the start, which is this story about how Jor-El was like saving these miners in the cave, and these like Kryptonian bugs that are kind of dangerous were like attacking them, and you know, and it kind of ties into the whole Krypton's changing because of like it's about to die thing with them like coming up like near the surface. But it's this idea that ultimately Jor-El had to kill the bugs, and it was kind of this, you know, sad thing that, you know, they're not necessarily, you know, evil because they're taking on, you know, killing the humans or whatever. But you know, there's a little speech between Cal and his dad where he's like, yeah, like, you know, I like, yes, I did the right thing, and it's comforting to say that to myself, but I still had to do something bad to save those people, and that's kind of a thing. So by the end of the issue, and Superman's making this choice not to kill Peacemaker, it kind of feels like he's really making a stand where he's almost like saying, he's not blaming his dad for what he did, like, you know, he respects, you know, his father and Jor-El for the lessons he taught him, but it's almost like he's saying, well, unlike my father though, I have more choice. Because I'm not just one of the people who are scared in a cave with a lava gun. I'm, you know, I think he says, I am one of the bugs, basically.
I'm trying to find what they were called, because it was like a mole mite or something like that.
It's right in the first page, I think, because it's supposed. You know,
is that what it is? Yeah.
It's right there at the start, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. But yeah, there's that whole sequence where it really hits into the, you know, the Sons of the Soil kind of vibe that we've gotten from Krypton. Where Cal's talking about, you know, we were the ones that were pushed out to the outskirts to, you know, thrive on the red dirt, you know, and he says, like, you know, the ruthless ruling powers in the cities and the sun-crazed beasts in the field. So it was like, it gives us different image of Krypton than what we're used to also, right? Where it was this very savage place, you know, and like, yeah, the people that lived on the outskirts, we had to do what we had to survive. And then that just drives home his choice at the end, right? Where, like you said, he has more choices. It's not like kill the mole mite to, you know, save the day. It's like, no, I need to destroy something in order to preserve. And it was a really nice little twist on that.
Yeah, but Superman's making the choice that he doesn't have to destroy. Like he because of his abilities,
Right.
because of the level of power that he has, he can choose not to do that and still have the outcome. Like his dad didn't have a choice; he had to kill those bugs.
Right.
It was the only option to save the people around. But Superman has a choice, and he's going to keep making the right one. So it's like kind of like a going through like a tougher challenge to sort of get to the same mantra that Superman usually has, but he's like having to like sort of fight through kind of like a darker story to get there. The other thing that stuck out to me in this issue is, there's a whole bit where Brainiac's like very subservient to Raz and is like, yes, my liege, I don't compare to you or whatever. And I'm like, oh god, because this is the Brainiac, of course, we saw the backstory to, who ultimately like took over the Brainiac ship and all that. And I was like, he is so going to betray Raz at some point. Either Raz gets defeated and this Brainiac like takes over the Empire for himself, or he's already plotting to ultimately overthrow Raz and be the ruler, because he already did it with the other Brainiacs. So it makes complete sense to me that he's acting all subservient just now, but like he's building to something.
What's it called? A palace assassination? I don't know if that's the right term, but it's from the inside, right? That's where the Empire gets taken down from, and that's what it feels. And just the way that he's always cowering because he has those, those like blade legs, they give him like goat legs. So he's constantly like his body language is like he's constantly cowering. But I feel at one point we're going to see him stand fully up, right? When it is that time. They
almost look like the back legs of a horse or something like that, the way they arch back. Yeah, I can see that. And of course, the other big thing in this issue is there's a betrayal to take down Superman. So obviously Lois is running around with Jimmy and telling Jimmy to keep his mouth shut and not talk about like try to like help him because someone will hear, kind of thing. And ultimately the way Superman's taken down, because he makes a stand, he makes a speech, we get the flashback to he's talking to his dad and all that back in Krypton, and ultimately it's what would they calling her? But we had like the agent of the Primus, thank you. But she was like the second in command of the Omega Men, and she stabs Superman in the back, and it turns out that she is Talia al Ghul. Yep. Had the feeling. We talked about it last time. There was something about her. We knew she was going to turn out to be someone, because they were being very coy with like what her name was. It was all very mysterious and it's interesting because it seems like Superman's actually going to be held captive by the Al Ghuls now. Ra's al Ghul is very smart. I mean, he's always very smart, but it feels like he's very smart in this universe because he's actually managed to take down Superman, and presumably we'll be able to trap him at least for a bit. Maybe he'll break out by the end of the issue or something. But
so judging what we know about the Brainiac stuff and what they've done to Peacemaker, I'm wondering if they're going to try to do like a brainwashing type thing with him now that but because of who he is and what the Kents, the short time with the Kents taught him that, this earth is worth preserving. I wonder if that's going to be what keeps him from fully succumbing to whatever Lazarus does. But it's not only the stab in the back from Primus / Talia, but Peacemaker had the kryptonite gun, right? And because Superman won't kill Peacemaker, Ra's just goes to do it, and he fires the kryptonite gun, and Cal stops the bullet with his hand, right? So he has the kryptonite in his hand plus the blade in his back, and knowing what we know about the kryptonite here, how long it took him from the first bullet, I'm wondering just how susceptible he is now.
It's a good moment because obviously he's made this choice where he won't kill Peacemaker, and because they do a whole thing here where Peacemaker goes to fight him, and Superman takes him out in what he says is 4 seconds. Like, Peacemaker goes in all gun-ho thinking he's got a chance, and he ends up on the ground, like, beaten half to death, and Superman, makes his little speech, makes the choice not to kill him, but then Raz goes to shoot him with the kryptonite gun, but Superman chooses to take the hit, even though he knows it's a bullet that will hurt him. So it's doing a good job of really establishing that he is a hero, like, despite all the darkness and maybe the edgier kind of, like, world that we're in and the character versus what he normally is, he's still ultimately making these very heroic choices that's really making him endearing to the audience. So it is interesting though, you know, because the end of the issue when Talia is with Raz, she says, "All hail the Omega." Now, what's interesting to me about that is that it kind of feels like the Omega Men. Like, I'm not sure if this is saying she was secretly the one who kind of established them and like is the one that's really in charge, and Jimmy just thought he was, or if it's a case of like, I don't know, because like obviously Omega means a lot here because it's Darkseid related, and this is all kind of like feeding back into that, and it makes sense that the biggest villains would be all for worshipping Darkseid in this universe,
right?
So it does call into question if the Omega Men were what like Jimmy and some of the others thought they were. Obviously Lois cries out when Superman gets stabbed, so you know people care. He's got some allies, but it does feel like the you know the odds are stacked against him right now, which should be fun to see them, you know, work their way out of it. So very cool.
Yeah, and it just makes me wonder too if Ra's al Ghul manufactured the Omega Men to give Lazarus something to fight against. Right, it's that old trope.
It seems that way, yeah. As does the vibe.
Yeah, where you create the enemy, right? So you can have this fight, but it's all like a misdirect, and he's been controlling both sides. And to see the disillusionment that comes from Jimmy here, too, when he sees all this go down. But yeah, it was a nice swerve. I like that. And again, like I had suspected that Talia or one of the Al Ghuls was Primus. Not that they were necessarily going to be in league with Ra's in this world. So that was a nice little twist of the hand. And then the idea that he keeps calling Superman his son and then says, you know, Talia, your sister. It also makes me wonder if this Ra's al Ghul does things by like survival of the fittest, right? So that's not his actual birth daughter. It's just, you know, someone that he is, you know, put into place to be that type of person.
Sure.
So,
yeah. Although I do, given that he's saying Talia is your sister, I imagine he's not planning on having him impregnate her for the ultimate grandson. I assume.
I mean, we don't know how much of a we don't know how much of a sicko he is.
Yeah.
Yet,
so
you know,
we'll see. Maybe he wants a pure family line though. Maybe he wants the incest, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, it wouldn't actually be incest, obviously, but like from the perspective of him saying, you know, you are brother and sister.
It is in the spirit, though, of it. You know what I mean? It's still icky that way. So, but yeah, I love that Ra's is Superman's main antagonist here. You know, and it keeps making me wonder what Lex Luthor in this world is like, right? If, you know, the person that we would, you know, Ra's is hitting all those boxes for the most part. So what is Lex worse than him? Is it a sidestep? Is, you know, he's somewhat more of a hero, like, you know, in comparison? So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think Jason Aaron's doing a lot of fun writing.
As far as the art goes, obviously Carmine Giandomenico is a very talented artist. There's, I think, a lot of the big set piece moments are good. I will say though, you know, he does tend to have kind of like messier faces at times, and I did feel the difference because obviously it's usually Rafa Sandoval and maybe some others who are on this book, so it did feel different than what we had been getting for the last couple issues. So that did stick out to me, but it's certainly not bad by any means. The coloring's particularly good, actually. I especially like how colorful that last page is because you've got the green glow of the kryptonite, you've got the purple glow of like whatever is on Talia's arm. You've is that a mother box maybe? I don't know. And then you've got all the red and yellow of like Superman freaking out in the foreground. Like there's a lot of bright popping colors on that page.
Yeah. Because they're against the very cool, like the blue of the Omega Men, right? That are all laying there too. So they really pop out. I really like the page where you're looking up at Superman from Peacemaker's point of view, and the cape just looks like this weird tendrily kind of thing, right? And it makes him almost seem like an angel, but like you know, something that's not quite right. Like he's not quite a demon or anything, right? But
yeah, it looks almost like
looks really cool.
Wings, yeah, the way it's kind of spreading out.
You know, I think that's a really cool. But to double down on the faces,
and importantly though, just that moment, that's the first time you see him in the whole issue. Is that panel looking up at him?
Like an angel. And to dig down on the faces there on the next page where it's the flashback to Krypton and younger Cal's talking to Jor-El. The very middle panel of the reaction of Cal, I think it's Cal, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He looks a lot like Jeremy Allen White, I thought, from The Bear and Ironclaw. Like he has a very looking gaunt kind of face, which I was like, who's this supposed to be? So that was the main, I think, drawback on the faces here that I couldn't tell who that was supposed to be. But I think the rest of them are fine.
Wait, when he's a kid in the flashback?
Yeah, just that middle page, as I was reading, I was kind of like, okay, that looks a bit off. I couldn't tell if that's supposed to be Jor-El or Cal. So, you know.
I mean, I'm not getting Jeremy Allen White. I'll say that much.
I am. No, I am. There's a look on his face here. It might just be the stark blue eyes.
Yeah. I have to admit, I was never confused about who was who on that page. If only because one's tall, one's short. It was never a question as to which one was which, but fair enough. So there you go. That's Absolute Superman. What are you rating him, Matt?
I'm 8.5.
Is that an 8.5? The Discord's been a bit unkind to you today.
8.5.
Maybe it should just always be closer, Matt. Maybe that, you know.
Yeah. I'll eventually get an arm. Eventually.
Goddamn, do it. It'll sound so much better. You're depriving the audience of better sound quality.
Yeah, but then I'm forcing them to hear me more, and that's not good.
Yeah, solid 8 out of 10 for me. I like Giandomenico, but I think I like his work on this book less than Sandoval and whoever else. So I'm going to say just a straight 8 for me on Absolute Superman. Absolute Green Lantern issue 5, Al Ewing writing with Jahnoy Lindsay on the art. So yeah, this one's getting intriguing. Like the build up of like exactly how everything works in this version of Green Lantern is still at play. The opening page here is just that black void with the white ring saying Todd Rice, be with fear, and that phrase "be with fear" keeps coming up throughout most of the issue. So we the cliffhanger last time was Hector Hammond landing with his entourage at the town in the aftermath, and it's Todd Rice who's been pulled from the wreckage, who's still alive in a stretcher, and we see how much of a prick that Hector Hammond is, where he fires someone for daring to say that he should not talk yet and try and conserve his energy so they can like help him heal, and Hector's like, no, talk now, tell me everything you know. So yeah, we get a little bit of perspective from him. We get more of the incident of what happened to Hal. Now, I was going to maybe say, oh, we finally know how Hal like turned into like the Black Hand or whatever, but we see it happen. I don't know if we understand exactly what's happening. So it, I think there's still some more to get the gist of here.
I read this 3 times trying to figure out what exactly the hell's going on. Right? And just it involves a melting Abin-Sur and yelling of the Black Hand. And now Hal is cursed with this, and his hand falls off and reforms. And it was just some really cool sci-fi body horror. You know, like you said, I don't quite understand it, but that's okay. So
what happens here is that Joe's just gotten the green power. She's an anomaly. That's what he yelled at her last time. You're an anomaly, right? So that's where we left off last issue with her. And Hal's still pointing the gun with the gold bullets at Abin-Sur. And, he's like, oh, she's an anomaly. Anomalies cannot exist in the spectrum of light. So she's something special. She's something different. And Abin-Sur is saying, be with fear. And Hal unloads the clip into him to the point where he keeps firing and it's just clicking empty. And he's like, that was for John, you bastard, blah, 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 blah. Right? And then Abin-Sur, who's now melting and kind of like, going jet black, grabs the hand of Hal and says that, Judgment Hal Jordan, the Black Hand, the Black Hand. So it feels like the Black Hand is passed on to Hal because Abin-Sur has died. It's almost like Abin-Sur had the Black Hand and the green light within him, and it feels like in the last issue when he said to Joe that, oh, those people who disappeared aren't dead. They are inside Oa. And the end of this issue kind of also maybe hints at this as well, is that Oa is more like a state of being, or I don't want to call it like a pocket reality, but it's more like an inner thing, right?
Yeah, it's almost like the idea of nirvana, which is like all encompassing. You know, it's a state of, like you said, a state of being, and they get that, you know, they physically, I guess, get pulled into it. I guess, I don't know, but yeah, this book is wild.
Yeah. You said his hand kind of like melts and then reforms into the Black Hand, and as Abin Sur's literally melting away, he's just like sort of finishing what he's saying. He says, "Judgment is no longer in progress, and Abin Sur cannot be appointed." That's a very interesting sentence, because that implies Abin Sur is not just a person's name. That implies that it's a title. A title, yeah, like a position, whatever. So yeah, so how far out is the world that's coming? Be with fear, Hal Jordan, fear the Black Hand, fear. So it's almost like be with fear isn't like, oh, I'm trying to intimidate you. It's like, no, be with fear because this threat is coming and you should be terrified of it. So,
and then he also warns to fear the Black Star.
Yes.
Which that's a whole other, like, if that's a piece of the Black, if the Black Hand's a piece of the Black Star, oh boy.
Yes,
like, yikes.
This is going to be such a fascinating book once we're like a couple of arcs in to go back to the start and read from the scratch, just to sort of like feel it all click into place a little bit. Yeah. So yeah. Basically, Hector Hammond has bought this giant Green Lantern, like, we'll call it a ship, but I don't even know if that's the right term. And he's pissed that they can't get inside it. So that's kind of what's going on there. Cut back to Joe and Hal having their fight, and Hal's sort of like formed like a sort of black monster with red eyes around him out of the Black Hand energy, and is fighting Joe. And, you know, Joe's got green powers, and she's fighting back, and it's a whole thing. I think the big thing you get here, though, is the way that the Black Hand entity, if you want to call it that, it does have a voice. It is talking to Hal in the same way that it was kind of talking about Todd earlier, but it's basically saying, hey, you know, it's, you know, you get the, like Hal speaking in the black bubbles, but you do get to, it kind of switches from him speaking, in white bubbles to black bubbles, and it even goes to kind of similar to the opening page and what we've been seeing in this motif, where it's just black with the white circle, except this time it's like all red with a black circle. And I don't know if that's just implying anger. Obviously, it's very similar to the eyes that he's got on this like body that he's formed, but it's basically saying, hey, you know, like, you know, the Black Hand, you know, is stronger, it's getting control, it's killing people, and it's because of her. It's almost like, you know, it's like, you know, manipulating him, it's talking him into doing this fight and like driving him forward. And Hal yells out with the black speech bubble, because of you. It's like, you know, he is being influenced by this. So, but it's interesting though, because like it starts using some of the language that Abin Sur used, right? Because it's, you know, the next page is yelling at her, and it says, "You brought the Green Lantern down, you destroyed the Evergreen, you stole the power of the Abin Sur." And it says, "You are anomaly, Sojourner Mullen." And I'm like, yeah, Hal wouldn't say that. Hal wouldn't like not to phrase it that way. This is clearly the Black Hand's knowledge is like bleeding into what he's saying. But because she even says, "Hal, who's talking?" Like she's realizing that it's not him that's really talking right now. Yeah, but anyway,
and then he goes, and he mentions that it was you in the ring. So, you know, it's really getting in on that point that she's an anomaly, and it's not necessarily like, it's like the ring isn't really a piece of the Green Lantern lore here. It's part of Joe's lore, right?
Well, yeah, because if I remember correctly, she put her hand inside the, you know, inside Abin Sur with the gold ring, and that's what, you know, caused the tragedy last issue. What's interesting though is when Hal/Black Hand yells, "Take off the ring," which is interesting, right? Because that's kind of weird, right? That she has the Green Lantern power here, but she's wearing a gold ring the entire time. That's kind of interesting, given how much it affected everything before. But he yells, "Take off the ring," and this causes a flashback to the end of her marriage where her ex-husband is demanding that she take off the ring and give it back because he bought it, and it was an oath. In fact, interestingly, he even says, you swore an oath in brightest day and blackest night, remember? So in this universe, that comes from Joe's wedding vows, apparently. Like, that's where that phrase comes from, which is a very interesting. So not only is her wedding ring the ring as far as Green Lantern is concerned, but even the vows that she had at her wedding are at least part. I mean, I'm sure it didn't do the whole thing. I'm sure she didn't say, beware my power, Green Lantern's light.
My sight.
yeah, that'd be weird to say at a wedding vow. But I thought it's an interesting touch how remixed this one is compared to the other ones. Like, this one feels so conceptually different to what Green Lantern normally is, but in a really interesting. I'm enjoying the discovery of what everything is. So she powers up and like punches the crab, and we get like he starts chasing her with a big giant black hand with an eye in the palm, and that's all going on. Hector and that's back at the big Green Lantern ship, and they see like these streaks of light and darkness like in the sky flying, and Hector realizes, oh, they're going to open this thing. Like these are the keys to getting inside here. So. And there's some good stuff here actually with the art where like the black hand kind of like grabs Jo and is kind of like got her foot and is sort of gradually consuming her, but then there's like a great panel of her like sort of pulling away and kind of almost whipping the black tendril that's reached out to her back towards Hal. So there's some really nice big cosmic stuff, but as this is happening, the Green Lantern ship is like going vertical. It's like rising up and starts to float in the sky because they're getting close and is reacting to her energy, I assume. And we get this big 2-page spread where she's basically dragging the black hand because she's like, basically turned it into a green beam, and she's made a construct of big angel wings around her. And it's a great big 2-page layout where she's flying and dragging them like a tether and flies them into the middle of the Green Lantern ship. I mean, as in like the hole in the symbol, if you will. She flies into the middle of that, and we end the issue. There's a voice in the darkness, right? And maybe there's a suggestion that this voice was the voice earlier as well, which would be weird, but the final page is Hal, who's kind of in black and white floating. Jo is green and floating, and inside the white ring in the darkness, it looks like John Stewart in a gold, like, he's got a gold sort of ring on his chest, and then he's all sort of glowing gold.
He's definitely yellow, right? If we're using just the traditional color schemes of the Green Lantern.
Oh, sure,
right?
but in this book it's always been gold, so that's why I'm,
but still, I don't, he's definitely, projecting the whole yellow, because he even says, be without fear, which is the first time that we get the, instead of be with fear, now we have
that's the big dramatic final line, is that it's like for the first time in the book it's been be with fear the entire time, consistently, and then he says be without fear, which is the first time it sounds like someone's saying something vaguely Green Lantern.
But he's wearing the color that's anti Green Lantern, right? The one color that seems to be the weakness. It's the gold yellow. You know what I mean?
Yes, but I wouldn't correlate that directly to like Yellow Lantern Corps though, because again but
I feel there's a flip of there's enough of a flip though that I do feel like that's a piece of it, right? As I feel the fact that we saw some of the red mixing with Hal with the black, and then we have the whole be with fear section, and then everything with her being this green anomaly. Right? Not necessarily saying this is Sinestro Corps or whatever, just that the yellow is that fear kind of given form, right? And it's weird that he's in the Zen-like stance, right? And here telling them to be without fear. So there's just a whole lot going on. A lot to bite off of.
Yeah, I'm not ready to connect this to any kind of Yellow Lantern Sinestro Corps thing, because one, we're dealing with gold. Admittedly, though, the weakness originally in comics was explained as being connected to the yellow power battery and like parallax and all that. So I suppose they could say that in this universe it's going to be gold instead of yellow, just in general across the board, which I guess would make sense. But I'm not ready to jump to that, but I do think it's interesting. They're all donning a different color of some kind, and it kind of almost feels like the entire spectrum of light is inside this. And is this Oa? Because that's where he said that all the people went, so it kind of feels like maybe John's the gatekeeper to Oa right now for whatever reason.
He was judged, right? And he was picked up.
I mean, they were all judged.
You know,
everyone that went away was judged.
Right. Yeah, but we specifically, what I mean is, we got that in the text that it said, you know, John Stewart, you have been judged, and that's when he gets, you know, he disappears.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but everyone who disappeared was judged. He said, I mean, that was implied to be said about everyone. So I don't think that inherently makes this is why he's special. If he's special and he's been picked for a special position in here because of who he is, I think it's because of who he is rather than just because he was judged. Because I think everyone technically was judged because Abin Sur was constantly saying judgment's in progress for you and you and you and you know. So yeah, honestly, this is very difficult to like guess where this is going. And I mean that in a good way. It's like we're unfolding a whole new mythology with it, which is kind of taking things from Green Lantern, but definitely doing its own things with it. Like
it's definitely Al Ewing's version of Green Lantern stuff.
Yeah, there's and this is so different. At least, I mean, it's possible that eventually it'll become more recognizable. I mean, maybe whatever like the end of this story ultimately is going to kind of form a more traditional Lantern Corps of some kind because of the way all of this ends when they defeat the Black Star or whatever. But it does feel like it's building its own weird like mystery mythology that we're kind of unraveling as we go, and it's been fun to explore. And it's interesting, like, you know, who they've chosen to be in certain roles, and I think the idea that the rings itself aren't important. But the idea of the circle is important because we keep coming back to this image of the circle and the void, whether it's the black and the white or it's the red and the black or whatever. But we keep coming back to that. I mean, so clearly the idea of the circle, which is also the symbol that's on John Stewart, he's not got a lantern symbol. He just has a gold circle.
Right. And then if you look at the Green Lantern symbol, right, it's the two lines over that same kind of circle.
Yeah.
Right. So it's almost like it's you know, but yeah. The whole thing, it's still a ring. Well, it's just not like a ring that you wear.
Well, to finish that sentence you just started, it's those two lines over the circle, which is almost like it's containing it, like it's keeping control of the circle. And I wonder if that's where we're going with this, is that the whole idea of Abin Sur and what he was doing or what his purpose was, is that he's keeping control of the spectrum of light which exists in this circle, and that circle maybe is Oa. Again, I'm just pulling that out. Like that could be all completely wrong. No, but just based on that one thing you just said, that's what came to mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, oh man, crazy stuff.
Yeah,
and then that whole action sequence with the chase, and you have Hector Hammond, and who we assume is Carol. He's not called her that yet, right? But she's wearing violet, and whatever. They're watching it from the ground with the binoculars. And he just comes off like a smarmy tech billionaire type dude in the very little time that we spent with him. So I think that's some very effective art and writing done by the team. Just I instantly don't like him, and it's not just because he's Hector Hammond. It's the way that he fires the guy for even suggesting that Todd doesn't talk, and then just the way that he snatches the binoculars from the guy to watch what, you know, Joe and Hal are up to up in the sky. So, you know, some very effective storytelling there.
Yeah. Art wise, obviously it's still Lindsay on the art, and I think, you know, obviously the art really shines when we get to those bigger moments, because obviously, you know, we do a little bit of the flashbacks, we do the Hector Hammond stuff, but once the chase starts and they're going through the sky, and it's also, you know, intercutting with the panels of the lantern raising vertical, it just starts to feel really big and epic. It feels like, oh, big stuff's happening here, and you kind of, you know, that 2-page layout especially feels like a big, you know, it's the second last page actually, but it feels like a big build up. You know, it's like the most, it's like the biggest display of power we've seen yet They didn't come out the gate with like giant Green Lantern constructs or anything like that. In fact, hell, even Jo's like wings that she's made herself here is kind of the most extravagant. Like, I mean, how many constructs have we really seen so far, other than a simple blast or maybe a hand at one point? So no, it feels like it's doing a good job of not just unraveling the mystery, but kind of feeling bigger and more epic as it goes as well. Like we're uncovering something important. So I think Al Ewing's doing a good job here, and then I think the art is, from issue 1, I've said the faces aren't always to my taste, but like the sequential art and the way it tells the story and flows is pretty great. So, yeah,
and just design on the Black Hand has like this kind of manga quality to it, but it also feels techno, right? Like there's just this weird mishmash of styles going on, which I think we've said from the beginning with Lindsay. So I couldn't think of a better book for them to be drawing on.
Yeah. All right, what are you giving Absolute Green Lantern?
I'm going to give this a straight 8.
I think I'm going to flip from Absolute Superman, and I'll go 8.5. So I'm really liking Absolute Green Lantern. All right, Batgirl, issue 10, Tate Brombal writing with Takeshi Miyazawa on the art. So, Cass has got a brother. That was the big reveal at the end of last issue. And I think this is a very interesting follow-up to that, where there's a quick flashback showing that Shiva would like visit once a year on his birthday to see how his training's coming along from, well, I guess just his dad, I assume. Maybe some others, but
Richard's still there, but you can tell he's not doing well, right? Because he's in the wheelchair, being pushed by Ron Steiger. So you have to assume that they kind of both trained him.
Just to be clear, though, he's still there in the flashback. He's not there in present day.
No, that's what I mean in the flashback from when Shiva's coming to see him. So
I'm just keeping it straight. I mean, I don't know how many people listen to these reviews without reading the books, but assuming there's some, I like to just make it clear what we're saying. So it does this sort of recurring motif where he's kind of like learning his moves and he's sort of mouthing to himself left, right, dodge, or and it's the same kind of sequence of words that he says each time. So we get to the present day, and then the other cliffhanger, of course, was the first assassin showed up from the Unburied. So I thought this was a great issue. I love how this played out, in the sense that Cass is Cass. We know how she operates. We don't know this brother character, though. And this brother basically won't shut up and is constantly trying to prove himself because he's been training and he wants to show that he can fight. And Cass is saying, less talk, quiet. And one of the things that I really liked is he's like mouthing the words to himself, is that eventually she does say, stop calling out your moves, right? I like that, point 1. Point 2, though, is that later when she kind of wins the fight, she basically does the same moves and she says the moves, but the only difference is that it's in her narration and it fits the format we've had for the whole book, which is she has these short narration boxes where she's like, because she does it a lot when she's like examining someone's reaction, like, oh, sweaty, nervous, uneasy. She just sort of like lists a bunch of things about the person she's looking at. So yeah, there's a whole that. Also, Cash yells out at one point, "You killed my mother," and the brother's like, "Wait, what? Killed?
Mom?" Yeah. So I definitely feel like what Brombal is going for too is this kind of resentment that Cass would have for this boy, because he got the kind of mother, right? The mothering from Shiva, so she thinks, be it that she didn't get. But there's this undercurrent that she was just showing up to see if he was ready once a year. And it wasn't even something like yeah, she birthed him, but she really wasn't there. And he has this kind of twisted sense that he wants to prove himself to her. So I definitely like that dynamic, right? That both kids are broken in their own way, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously he doesn't have David Kane as a father, which means his experience is a little bit different. I think what this was doing for me was this idea of Like, he's a bit more coddled. Like, he's told that his parents are both heroes. He's believed that his life. That comes out over the course of the issue. Bronze Tiger kind of admits that, yeah, he's trained him to a point, but he's never been in a real fight. He's never actually fought someone who's trying to kill him. And he kind of, like, you know, he wanted to keep it that way. He wants them to think, yeah, I can be a badass, but he wants to keep him safe here, away from all the chaos of the rest of the world. So, you know, he doesn't want Tenji, which is the brother's name, which I totally remembered the entire time. It's not just because I'm looking at it right now. But he, you know, he's like, Tenji, like, no, you can't do it. And he, you know, Tenji gets a little bit cocky. He's like dodging the assassin's blade, and he's like, don't worry, Dad, I have been trained for this. But sure enough, you know, Cass like has to come in after he takes a hit and sort of like get the fight going herself and you know, be Cassandra Cain. It's the whole thing. And then ultimately Bronze Tiger steps in and knocks the guy into the barn, and they're like, okay, we have to go and, you know, patch him up and all that. But, you know, Cass is like, did she teach him? And it's like, well, nah, I mean, not really. She wasn't here. She came to test him once a year, but she wasn't really the one teaching him. So, you know, it's a whole thing. I think it's interesting that we're exploring these ideas of like someone who was able to become, or someone who thinks they want to be Cassandra Cain, because he does immediately say he looks up to her. He's like, oh God, like, you know, like I've got a sister to look up to now. And Cass doesn't really know how to deal with that. And I really like the page after he's been patched up, he's like lying on the table sleeping, and Bronze Tiger and Cass are basically debating, like, you know, what the right thing is here, and like who's family, and you know, it's like, why didn't your mother tell me that I had a brother? And as they're having this debate, they're both hitting this like training dummy thing that's got different like things like sticking out of it, and ultimately Bronze Tiger yells out that, you know, he didn't want him to end up like her, because he sees her as a broken person who is, you know, like the idea that she's went off to Batman. He breaks the training dummy thing, and he's like, I don't want my son to be doing what you do, and to be obsessing with trying to like fill the void that was left by your parents and or lack thereof. So, and Cass is like, I survive, he might not. But like that's the difference. That's the difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny because the other thing is like Cass saying, yeah, I had a great childhood. Like people should have my kind of childhood, because no,
but she's, you know, she's a product of how she was raised, right? And that this boy's been coddled. He's never been in a real fight. He has all this confidence that's been unearned, you know, and that's been the complete opposite with her. She was just, you know, forced to become a weapon by her dad.
Yeah, he's cocky and naive, and not in like a malicious way. He just he just doesn't know. He just like
he's too, I don't want to say too dumb, because it's not a dumb thing, but you know, like in sports, you say like it's a team that they're not smart enough to know they're bad, right? Yeah. And not that he's bad or anything, but there's this, when it comes to like younger teams, there's this cockiness that they don't know they're not supposed to be good, right? So they'll stand up there against the better teams and try, and they're going to get beat, but that's where you learn from. So he still has a lot to go, you know, and that their training is, you know, he might never be ready if they keep going that route.
And I don't know if they said his age yet, but I assume he's still a teenager. I assume he's like 16 or something like that. So, you know,
I feel he's not significantly younger than Cass, because how old's Cass supposed to be? She's like college age, right?
I think she's maybe like 20 or something now.
Yeah. So, you know, not significantly, but definitely, you know, that's her little brother, you know.
Hey, 4 years of a difference is a big difference at that age. Like, it's a difference between someone who's, you know.
It's... For us, it's a senior in high school versus a freshman, right? And that's a whole lot of difference.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm thinking specifically what their gap is, though. Like, he would still be in high school, and she's like actually maybe having to worry about money a little bit. You know, there's a big difference. And that's the real world comparison. Here, the comparison is she's been working with Batman for years and taking down super criminals and all the rest of it. And dealing with the kind of the trauma of how she was raised and all the rest of it, and he's been coddled in this farm for his life and told some lies to make himself feel better. If I have like one critique about this issue, honestly, it is a little bit weird that after Bronze Tiger knocks the assassin into the barn, that they just kind of like go into the house and start talking and ignore the fact that like he's still in there. Because I thought you're gonna, not that I thought the cast was going to let him like kill him or anything, but like you're not going to go and like just tie him up or something. Because sure enough, at the end of this conversation, we go out to the barn and he like takes one of his blue rose petals or whatever the flower is that they all take, they unburied, and he starts to like hulk up. He starts to glow blue, and he's like, "Oh, I'm ready to go supernova." So it's a whole thing. Also, Kenji's a little bit upset that his birthday's next month and he won't get to show his mum that he's improved since last year. So he's coming to terms with the whole thing. So it is interesting though that he like wants to be a hero. Like he has this desire to be that. Because he even says to Cass, "I don't care if you don't want me. I'm your brother. You're gonna have to deal with that." So yeah. And this is the thing that she's been doing this the entire series. Has been like a constant thing in the writing, is this narration where she's like analyzing what the person she's talking to is doing. And like he reaches out and touches her shoulder and she's like, touch, smile, heartbeat, words, find the, and they get interrupted before she can finish that thought. But I really love the idea because a big part of Cassie's character is that she didn't really speak to begin with, and she can she talks and holds a conversation now, but it's still very short. It's still very, I love the idea that she has no idea how to respond to this genuine show of affection from a brother that she didn't know she had. She doesn't know what to say, and she knows she should say something, but the idea that Cass is in a position once again where she can't find the words, in a weird way, I have to assume that makes her feel like, like almost like she's regressed. And not that she actually has, but it must remind her of how she used to feel in the early days when she just didn't have the words for anyone.
It reminds her of her limitations.
Yeah.
Right. And so because she speaks body language, not speaking language. So, but no, I like that because he tells her, neither of us are dying today, and just she's looking at him and just the way that they're drawn, the body language here. She's still kind of leaning back, like she's not sure.
She looks,
this whole entire thing.
She looks surprised. He looks like he's trying to, he's literally reaching out and like has kind of a relaxed, warmth to him. And then in the background, Bronze Tiger's side eye, and he's like, "Oh no, I don't want this. I don't want this sister relationship to be a thing. I don't like this. This is bad news." So yeah. Anyway, the assassin bursts in, all hulked out with his blue flower power.
Yep.
And Kenji says, "We doing this?" And Cass just says yes, which at the very least means she's willing to fight alongside him here. And she says, "Watch, learn." So it's kind of cool her get into big sister mode, where it's like, okay, because here's what I like about this: a big part of Batman, right, and taking in the Robins is this idea that he can help them be healthier than he is. That Dick Grayson won't turn out to be like Bruce Wayne because he's there to kind of use what he's learned about himself to try and make sure Dick becomes a better, well-adjusted person, all things considered, right? And that's the attempt with all the Robins to some extent, and the Batgirls, I suppose. So this idea that Cass is effectively doing the same thing here, where potentially, right, where she can use the rougher past that she's had to actually train this brother, where, okay, you've not really been taught properly. You've been taught some fighting techniques and some basic stuff, but I can actually teach you to fight to survive. And, maybe she'll impart that knowledge, but in doing so, she'll make a healthier person than she is because she's able to kind of encourage better things in him. And it's in the same way that Batman encourages Dick and the other Robins to be better than him. So I like that she's effectively stepping into that kind of mentor role. And it feels like a big step for her because she has been the younger one for such a long time that it feels like a nice natural bit of like next step growth for Cass. Which is kind of what you want if you get given a character a solo book, is you want to give them some growth, and this feels like it is growth for her, where
she is like low key accepted him, right? When she agrees to fight alongside of him, she's just like, well, he's my brother. I can't go back on this. So the best I can do is make sure he's ready.
I mean, I don't know if she's really even thought about it that in depth yet. I mean, I'd argue that it's really just like, oh, it's the first sign that she's willing to, more than anything. But, you know, her saying watch Learn, it's like, okay, she's going to start imparting knowledge and he'll be the better for it. And, you know, it's interesting that this started with Shiva, this run, and like her relationship with her. But I do actually love that it's now pivoting into this new dynamic for her, because it is completely fresh for the character. It's completely different, and I'm kind of excited. So we get some fighting here. You know, there's a 2-page layout where they're fighting the assassin, and this is after that it goes to where Cass says the same things that Kenji was, but it's all in her head, which is left, right, dodge, counter, and then they both strike together. So it's, you know, it's visually showing that they're working a little bit in unison and that there is something here. So the assassin starts to hulk out even more. Blue flames start forming around him. He's like, Blue Blossom Omni Strike. He's basically he thinks he's a Mortal Kombat character or something.
Well, yeah, he's going for a super finisher. Yeah, you know, and he's glowing blue. Like there's like flames and stuff coming off him. So you're like, oh shoot!
It's a great visual. I'll give it that. Yeah. However, there is a quick splat. The spin of a weapon. The head comes flying off, mostly in shadow though, because we don't want to get the book rated mature. Yeah. And the cliffhanger is the second assassin of 3 has arrived. Sword number 2, Wu Bing from the Blood Clan, whose finisher is Blood of 1,000 Furies. So maybe we'll get to see that. Or maybe that was her finisher, the beheading, I don't know. But either way.
I don't know, man. He was just kind of standing there charging up, and comes through and Highlanders him. You know, I half expected her to yell, there can only be one.
I actually kind of liked her line here. He should have known Wu Bing. She's talking in the third person. He should have known Wu Bing is jet lagged and has no time for theatrics, only business. So I actually got a chuckle out of me.
Yeah, and she's her weapon is like one of those. They call it a Chinese podao, but it's like one of those swords that's on a staff, right? So it's the big curved like saber. You know, but it's on the end of a short staff.
It's like a spear and a sword had some sex, and this is what came out of the
she spit it around. She just took this dude's head off. And I do like on that the splurt or the slice page, it goes from those kind of blue energy flames to the red blood. Yeah. Right? Like the color gradient and stuff. Real nice touch. But yeah, that ending really shocked me because I was like, oh cool. We're gonna see, you know, Cass and them, and I have expected Bronze Tiger to come in and you know, take out this dude. Was not expecting this, so that was fun.
Yeah. So I kind of hope Kenji sticks around just purely because I do think it's interesting having Cass be in this mentor role. I think that's a cool idea. That said, though, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility he's dead by the end of this arc. It's also very possible. So we'll see. We'll see. It just kind of depends what Brombal's got planned, but. And the art, of course, has been something we have praised a lot in this series from the regular artist. It's very kinetic. Every time there's fighting, it feels like it flows very well. There's a really good pace to it. There's a really good kind of pulse to the action. And it happens every time. It happens during the first fight where Kenji's being cocky and he starts to get beat and Cass steps in. It happens when it's just Cass and Bronze Tiger like sparring with the dummy, but they're kind of like having this fight as they're verbally as they're doing it. And then ultimately the big final fight is just full of kinetic stuff. Typically whenever this book does like a 2-page layout for a fight scene, it usually leaves you quite pleased, I would say. Yeah. So, and that's not to discount the excellent body language and the fact that Cass only has eyes to really express herself, and the art still nails her reactions to so many things like throughout. Yeah. So
it's the Miyazawa. I have to look at it when I say his name. But really, it feels like it shifts gears when it does the action sequences. Everything ramps up. There's a lot of action, a lot more panels, and then when it's time to slow down, we get the bigger panels. We get the body language, the expressions. Yep. You know, and it's a really nice shift. So it makes it very cinematic, and in a martial arts focused book like this, you kind of need those gear shifts, right? It can't always be, you know, the double page fight scenes and stuff. So
And sometimes it's just the simplest little things. Like, so that last page, right, where the assassins beheaded the first one, right? So those 3 panels at the top, right, which is there's like a slash of blood, the spinning of the weapon, and then the head sort of landing on the floor. Simple little thing here, but those panels are not just straight, like, you know, it's not just 3 rectangles, right? They're angled as if they're kind of like coming down in the same angle as the head. So you actually get the motion of the head flying down to the floor in the way the panels move. It's like it's a really smart, simple bit of layout. And this is not like a super rocket science trick. It's just very simple. The panels move in the same way as the head is moving. So when you see it land in that last panel of the ground, you kind of get the feeling that it's moved in that direction, which it has. It's just good layout. It's just good art.
Yeah, that's the sequential art at work.
Yeah.
You know, you're following the sequence. So
good stuff.
Yeah. But yeah.
All right, what are you rating Batgirl?
I mean, it's an 8.5.
You know, having talked about it, I think I'm going with a 9. I think this was a great issue. I think this is adding stuff to the character, and it's the art's great. There's good character beats. It's fight sequences. It's hard to fault, honestly. So no, good stuff. Birds of Prey issue 24, legacy number 222. Kelly Thompson writing with Sami Basri on the art. So this kind of wraps up the arc in some ways, in that it ends this sort of like we're trying to save Barda from ink stuff. But the villainous team do get away, and they're still kind of the focus going forward. So we've ended an arc, but it's kind of like the part of a multi-arc kind of overall story, which is fair enough. So, you know, the last issue ended with the reserves coming in to help with the fight. So we got Grace Choi and Harley and Vixen and all that.
Onyx.
Yeah. Yes, say the one whose name I was never going to remember. Very good. I'm pleased.
I got you. I got you.
So yeah, so we get some fight stuff here. Vixen using her powers. What's the shadow cat thing called?
Oh,
thank you, Poe. Yeah. But yeah, Sally gets hurt and gets knocked back against the wall, and they kind of get worried about that a little bit. There's a big 2-page layout where Canary's like using her cry, and you know, again, a lot of kinetic stuff here. Onyx at one point gets thrown out of a window by Inked Up Barda, and I think it's Grace has to like dive and grab her, and it's just a really good sequence because again, much like we were talking about in the last book, like the panel where she's going flying out the window, the one where she's actually on the outside and all the glasses, the glass is broken. I can speak. Simple thing. The panel is just shaped, where it's getting wider on the one side. I guess it's technically a trapezium, but on its side. But anyway,
like a trapezoid.
A trapezoid, yeah. But it's wider on one side, and it's wider on the side in the direction that she's going. So you get this sense of momentum along with just the direction she's actually moving in, and the panels of glass are also flying in that direction. It's just again simple little trick where the panel shape adds to the the actual action that's taking place in the thing. So. Yeah, Canary. In fact, the next page I quite like as well because it's like basically the idea that Canary just sort of like circles the room with her cry. Because you see her hitting a couple of the villains, and then it's like she's turning, and she eventually gets round to Inked Up Barda, and Constantine's doing a spell to sort of contain her and trap her, and she's like, clever, but yeah, I can already feel this fading. This won't hold me for long, and. It's Cass who comes up and looks up, and it's a great panel where Barda's towering over, so she really does feel like Little Bat looking up at her, and she pulls out the staff, which said
the Mega Rod.
Is it?
Yeah, it's the Mega Rod. Isn't that Barda's? Only she can hold.
Well, I'm not sure it is because it's the thing that Oh no, it's a different one. Oh wait, so I was getting confused because later on they're talking about the bad guy's staff, which looks very similar, and I was wondering if it was that she had. The Mega Rod makes. I thought it was the Mega Rod in the moment, but then later on when we were talking about the guy's staff, I got confused. But yeah, she has the Mega Rod
because they made a big deal earlier in the series that Barda's the only one that's powerful enough, right, to do it. So it makes sense that they just need to get it into her hands because Barda's still under there, right? Like Ink is just.
Yeah, ink,
over her.
Ink can't hold it, so basically it forces Ink to leave Barda's body. And then I really like the little touch here where Barda screams when she's free, and Canary's just like, "Oh, I didn't consider how pissed Barda's going to be when she gets out."
Yeah, and I love on the page after that, on the very bottom, her head takes up like the whole panel, and she just goes, "Also, have any of you ever been to the moon?" Talking to the villain group, because she's gonna be so mad she's gonna throw him to the moon. Yeah, very, very fun.
Yeah, it's because the helmet's so wide, it's sort of reaching this wide panel almost to the sides. It's very, and Canary basically says, "Hey, if you cooperate and tell us what we need to know and get us all the stolen tech back, nobody will get thrown to the moon." And then Barda just says, "Nobody but Ink." It's like Ink's no debate. Ink's getting punished for what she did to me.
And then if you look behind him, Ink's making an escape.
Yeah, through the vent
into the ceiling. And I just thought, oh man, so much fun little details at play here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fight at the start's like solid enough. I think it gets particularly good once we get to the build up of what their plan actually is, and then I think the emotional impact and the fun of like Barda becoming free, and the fact that it's Cass is the one to do it because their friendship's been blossoming throughout this entire run is especially good, and I really like. Where things get a bit weird though is when they all think everything's calmed down and they've won, Megira starts freaking out and attacking everyone. And it's because the gold tiger dude, is that his name? What's I keep forgetting his name.
Gold Lion.
Golden Lion.
Golden Lion.
He uses his rod to control Megira, which was established that he could do that before. He tries to pick up the Mega Rod and yells out in like sort of pain. But he does he's able to like get it to make a boom tube. He sort of like stutters and like is in pain, but he's like, "Boom tube, mummy home," or something is what he's trying to say.
It's boom tube to my home, but I thought he was saying boom tube to mommy.
That's what I thought he said.
What the hell is going on? But I went back and re-looked over, and it's like, it's a boom tube to my home, which is very weird that he's able to, to do that so effectively. So I know they're time travel, timey-wimey stuff, but still. A bit curious.
Well, one, it's clearly hurting them to hold it, right? So they're still kind of keeping up with things. But maybe the idea is that because he has his staff, which is also his powerful rod, maybe he can withstand it a bit more than most people would. Is the idea? I mean, maybe I'm.
Well, I'm just saying, just the idea that he knows how to activate the boom tube technology of it and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like there's something up. I feel like there's a bit of a tell.
Matt, you literally just asked for a boom tube. It's not rocket science. He just said, "Give me a boom tube," and it appeared.
Yeah, but again,
it's not like getting a space shuttle and having to know which switches to flip. he's like, "Give me a boom tube." It's like talking to Alexa. You just ask for porn and it'll provide porn. It's that simple.
Well, that's where your brain went automatically. Also, kids, don't do that with the Alexa. Don't do that. Or a boom tube for that matter. You never know where you're going to end up.
Yeah, boom tube to the porn instead. That's an idea.
Yes. Yes. But yeah, I do like the like. I felt like we got a nice wrap up, but there's still a lot in the air, right? So I felt like this was a fitting what's the word I'm looking for? A fulfilling ending. Yeah, just
to establish here, the entire villain team sneaks out the boom tube, right? They're able to grab the Mega Rod back. Megira sort of grabs it for Barda, just as they're leaving. So they still have that, but the villains have gotten away, and they've still got all the stolen tech, the stolen drugs, all the stuff they were doing. And the big point they make up as they're talking in the following pages, other than some of the good friendly stuff, because they're all having dinner together with all the reserves and they're bonding. There's an implication that Harley might have taken a dump in one of their beds when they were searching the place. So that's amusing. But the main thing they get to once the reserves leave, and it's just the core 5 again who are left, is this idea that even though they kind of won, it feels like the villain team kind of basically built their plans so that, okay, there's layers of success to this, and if the birds beat us on this level, it's okay because we've still achieved these other things. So they're still kind of steps ahead. So, they're basically saying, hey, let's get to work. And, Barbara's like ready to start calling shots and giving people ideas. But the cliffhanger at the end of the issue is that out of nowhere, Barda jumps up on the table and runs over to the wall and just puts her hand all the way through it. And when she brings her hand back, she's holding Ink by the neck. Ink has come to see them. And the implication to me is that she's not here because she was like, I think she wanted to come talk to them. That's the implication I get, is that she's actually here to talk to them for some reason. Obviously, Barda's pissed. I mean, the last line of the book is her saying, "Speak to me, I dare you." So, now, it could be a trick, potentially, but maybe Ink, for some reason, wants to turn on her team and wants to help the birds in some capacity. That would be a turn for an interesting pivot.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how familiar you are with Ink from Batman Beyond, but she was basically a corporate spy, right? And she was kind of loyal to no one but herself. And I'm wondering if that's the direction Kelly Thompson's going to go with this. Maybe, her effectively, that she's just going to try to spin it to, how she can make out of here unscathed as possible. But with Barda, I don't know if that's going to be possible. Because you feel like Barda's the type that you don't get to control over my body and leave unscathed.
Yeah, I mean...
So, she still feels pissed, so...
This is like a weird element to this issue where part of me almost wants to feel like not disappointed. That's not even quite the right word, but it just feels a little weird that it kind of felt like we kind of wrapped up the arc. But it felt quick, but at the same time, it's not really over yet because the villains got away, and there's kind of like a weird feeling to that to me. But having said that, like, so many of the beats in this issue I really liked. I loved the ending with Barda grabbing Ink. I loved Cass giving the rod to Barda. I loved some of the fights. The villains getting away is the one, and it's not because like they're potentially some of the best stuff might be what happens next with them. So I don't want to like judge it and say this was a bad choice. It's just that in the moment it kind of felt like, oh, they're getting away. It feels a little bit, I guess, like, oh, we're still dealing with this team for the foreseeable future. Which, again, what they do next with them might be great. It just felt a little bit weird in the moment because I thought we were getting more of an ending, I guess. But it's kind of a minor quibble overall, though.
But I like that overall, I feel like Kelly Thompson's telling a full story. It's not just the arc by arc. Yeah. Right? That there is a grand plan and she's seeding it out as it goes, which I like that it's taking its time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love that the first arc was all about the Megira and Sin stuff, and that's still a constant thing in the book that's happening in the background, and you know there's going to be more payoff to it. I loved that they set up the whole time traveling thing, which led to Sela, and Sela's now kind of one of these like reserve members that comes in. Like everything feels like there's a lot of continuity with the overall run, and I really like that. Any quibble I have is pretty minor here because ultimately, I still loved all the characters. I loved a lot of the moments. It's just that one element of it just kind of feels like a weird plot beat, I guess, to me. It feels a little bit sort of like stop and start, I guess. But
it is a bit, that's what I said, it is a bit odd, but it still feels fulfilling seeing them sitting there eating at the table, right? Like they're like, oh, we stopped them for now, and they brought in all the reserve members, so we get this big fun, what's that called? Like, is that the denouement of a movie? Right? When everything's kind of ended and then we jump right into the next part. So it was this weird, like it felt fulfilling, but yeah, I want to know where this goes still. Like there's still a bunch in the air.
I guess them getting away feels a little bit like, oh, Rita Repulsa got away, we'll get her next week on Power Rangers.
Now, that makes sense.
Don't get me wrong. I'm sure they're not going to do it repeatedly in this. It's probably a one-time thing, but I guess that's what it makes me feel like, is like, oh, the villains got away so we can still fight them again next time. But hey, and maybe if like I knew like at least just one of the villains better, where there was someone that I cared about, where I'm excited that they're still around, that would make me feel better about it. But because it's kind of
you're not a big Copperhead guy.
It's okay. It's it's a team of C and D listers, and even that's maybe being generous.
Even then, even Ink's the only one I'm not familiar with, and that's only because I was obsessed with Batman Beyond as a kid, right? The rest of them, like, I don't know who the pixie-looking dude is. I can't even remember his name, the one with all the tech gadgets.
Yeah.
And then getting, was it Velvet Tiger, Golden Lion confused? Like, are they hanging out with Bronze Tiger? Like, what's that naming stuff? But yeah, Copperhead's the only other one that I recognize, and he's like, I'd say D-list at best.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if we had one that was a bit more familiar, it would feel a little bit,
Yeah.
a little bit more fulfilling. But
We talked about the art a fair bit earlier in the fight stuff, and like how the paneling really helped with the Barda stuff. So quite happy with all that. Little touch as well, actually, is this the second last page when it's the 5 team members sitting talking, and it's obviously the next page starts with Barda realizing they're being watched, and she jumps out of the seat. Those 3 panels on the previous page, I actually think it's from Ink's POV, like she's watching them from behind, an opening. So it's something that I didn't even think about as I was reading it, but I'm just noticing it now and thinking, oh, that's a nice touch. So
yeah, too. Yeah, and I like there that it feels too like something's closing in on him, right? Because you have that's almost like a curtain there. So a lot of fun little details there.
Yeah. All right. What are you rating Birds of Prey?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
And I'll just go straight 8 because of the quibble that I had with the stop-startiness of the villains getting away. But like ultimately, like the next part of the story with them could be like even better, and I won't care once we've got to that part. But just in the moment, it feels a little bit weird. So, but very good overall though. Still enjoying it a ton. JSA issue 10. Jeff Lemire writing with Rafael de Latorre on the art. So Matt did not read GSA this time. I did. I opted not to read another book, which is coming up later. And I picked this one over. I'll just say what it is now. It's the Godzilla Kong book.
Yeah.
I opted to read this over that because I think ultimately because like there's a hope, because it's an ongoing, because I care about the JSA and there's a hope this could and will get better. And I kind of wanted to at least read another issue before we potentially put it on, because this is the thing, like, because like obviously Matt's already kind of teetering on dropping, and we've kind of talked about how it might be a drop at some point. I think this might be on the vote for Patreon in the next round to like for you guys to save it if you want to, and keep us like talking about it, and maybe that's also true for the Godzilla Kong book as well, given that I didn't read this one. But I think I like some of what this issue does. It's cutting around a lot of the characters. I still think fundamentally the biggest problem with this book was how it chose to start, and that entire first like 5-6 issues just did not do it any favors for how how it set things up and whatnot. So the cliffhanger last time was that Kid Eternity, this new Kid Eternity in Hell, ran into the ghosts, if you want to call them that, of all the classic dead JSA members. And this issue kind of explains some of this. It's like, hey, you don't remember who you are, but you can visit any dead person that's ever existed, and you need to help the JSA. And she's kind of like, I want to remember who I am though. I have like these sort of weird flashes, and like you won't know who you are until you've fulfilled your destiny, and you might be the greatest Kid Eternity of them all. So that's being set up, and that kind of builds up towards the end where the two Hawks are looking for and then they have a bit of a debate if they even should go after, because Hawkman wants to just go and help the JSA, and Hawkgirl's like, no, this kid needs our help. She helped find you, so we're going to go help her. And they run into Gentleman Ghost and Grundy and the trio of demons. So they end up dealing with them, and the big thing at the end is that Kid Eternity is the one that shows up. And by the end of the issue, the ghosts of the JSA have given her all of their powers. Not that all of them have powers. I don't know if that means maybe she has Wildcat's fighting skills as well, but she's basically using Dr. Fate powers, and when she comes to help the Hawks at the end of the issue. But yeah, everyone knows that Sorrow was pretending to be Todd. So they have a bit of a fight with Sorrow, but Sorrow gets away. It is what it is. And there's a bit of tension still between Our Man and Jesse. It's like, it's playing all the beats you expect it's been playing, right? The team of villains, all the ones that aren't with the Hawks anyway, are going to Black Hawk Island to find this secret Hawkman museum. Red Lantern drills in underneath so they can get to all the stuff. It's a whole thing. But yeah, I mean, like, they get the Spear of Destiny, right? They're all excited about it. And some of the Kid Eternity stuff plays out at this point. Which, by the way, that stuff ends with because she says she saw the JSA or she saw Dr. Fate, and Kendra says, "Was it Khalid?" And then she's like, "No, I think he said his name was Kent Nelson." And Hawkman's face just is like, "What?"
Man,
I laughed at that panel. I thought his reaction to that was pretty funny. Small team of the JSA, Alan, Jay, Sand, and Jade go to the museum, and they all start feeling immense pain because the Injustice Society have got the spear, and they're saying bow down before us, and that's where the issue ends. It's funny because in some ways it is getting easier to read. Because it feels like a lot of the things are coming together a bit now, but at the same time, I don't really feel like I care that much about what's going on because they never did a good job of making me care in the first place. So I'm still kind of feeling a bit lukewarm to it. The next thing I can say is that it is a very easy read still. Like I breezed through this relatively quite quickly, so that's something.
Do they get to spend a lot of time on Black Hawk Island, or do they just immediately find the museum? Like,
there's not a lot of build up. There's like a little fight that happens between Red Lantern and the snake one. That's not Copper.
Oh, Cobra.
Cobra, thank you.
Lady Cobra, probably.
We were talking about Copperhead in the last book, so my snake head was not my snake head. You know what? My head thinking about snake characters was messed up. Yeah. Anyway, there's not a lot of build up other than them having a little spat on the way to the location. It's kind of, again, like, I come back to it, but like I really wish this book would just decide on focusing on one plot line, or maybe one A plot and one B plot, and just sticking to it. And this one's not that far away from it, but there is kind of more than one, because you've got the heroes, you've got the villains, you've got the stuff in hell, and even that's split in two because you've got like Kid Eternity separate from the Hawks. So there's like 4 groups of characters we're kind of jumping around. A lot of them do converge by the end, which is fair, but like, I think if this issue was exactly the same as it was, but the rest of the book had been great up until this point, I don't think I'd really have a problem, because by this point everything would be so established you can jump around a bit more. But because this book has had that problem since issue 1, where it's been jumping around too many like characters and groups, and none of them getting enough time to really feel fleshed out, it's still sort of lingering in a way where, like, even though it's not as bad now, it's kind of a victim of its build up of what it's been. Yeah, it's fine. It's an okay issue. It's perfectly serviceable. You get to see some cool GSA villains. Alchemy's in the team. Sorrow's always been a cool villain. Gentleman Ghost is a villain for an acquired taste. I don't know.
I just love the visual of Gentleman Ghost every time I see him, because he has that high collar and then the monocle.
Sure, yeah.
Like, it's just very silly and very Golden Agey. So
yeah, and Latorre's art is it's Latorre. He's a solid artist. That Hawkman reaction was pretty funny, and the art was what made it funny. I think it's consistent throughout. It's probably better than some of the art has been in the book. The art has been not bad typically, but it's definitely had a bit of a house style feel to it. And not that this, like, Latorre does feel a bit house style here. It feels different to when he did like that book with King. And it, the coloring was a lot more moody. Whereas this is sort of like very just typical, like bright and vibrant, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but it's just, I think it lends to his work looking a bit more house style than normal, but still very solid and high quality throughout. No real big complaints for me on the art, but at the same time, nothing wowed me either. So, take that for what you will. As for rating, I'll say 6. That's 6.5. 6.5. Like, it's not quite. I'm still not going to quite call it good, but decent enough. So, very good chance this will be on the next vote for you guys to save and keep the next issue around. And we'll see what we go from there. But it's been one that's been teetering, and obviously we had a new issue 1 this week, and it feels like at least either this or the Godzilla book is probably going, and we'll see how people feel. That said, though, if there's more interesting picks, then the Godzilla book may just not even be on the vote. We'll see. It depends how many issue 1s coming out in September look interesting. Well, interesting, but not in the sense that we would be reading them anyway. You know what I mean? Anyway,
yes.
Because at issue 1, we'll just read if we think it looks good. All right, that's JSA. We can move on. I can rest my voice because
yes,
Poison Ivy issue 35. G.L. Wilson writing with Marcio Takara on the art. Take it away.
All right, so Pam's in distress, right? The Gotham PD have taken Killer Croc because Janet from HR pulled a sneaky on her because she's dying of toxic exposure to Poison Ivy. With the plant, I forget her name, but she's the Swamp Thing lady that has beef with Ivy. So Ivy's at a crossroads here, and because the Gardener had set her up to be this eco-terrorist leader of the Green Knight, of the Order of the Green Knight. But that was never Pam. Pam didn't want to do that, right? So she told Batman, that's not her. I swear that's not me. I'll get to the bottom of it. However, in this fight with the Gotham PD, she had members from the Orders of the Green Knight fight with her and Peter Undine and Croc. So by default, she became became the leader of the Order of the Green Knight. So she lied to Batman, and now Batman's going to be pissed. And that's just the least of Pam's worries. So she's trying to figure out how she's going to handle this because there was a leak somewhere, and us readers know that it was Janet, right? Because the Green doesn't want the truce with the gray, which is the mushrooms, the fungus, right? And because Pam is the bridge between them. And so getting her off of her game will get the Green in order to shore up what they need to do. Pam decides that she's going to try to go and talk with Bella, with the Gardener, but she comes to that conclusion by going to visit Harley, and Harley's in Gotham. She has to make it quick because she doesn't want Batman. She doesn't want to deal with that. Janet's not doing well, so there's a ticking clock. And it's Harley that tells Pam to go talk to the Gardener. Peter Undine, who's the guy with the fire face, has a bit of he's a bit hesitant because while the Gardener can tap into the Green with the experiments, she's not part of them like they are, right? So she's looking always at this like an outsider, as the Green is something to be controlled and not experienced. But Pam knows that maybe she needs that outsider perspective in order to, close out this Cold War between the Green and the Gray. Pam notices in her ranks this girl that is covered with like this fungal rash. She's missing half of her hair. She's covered with these purple spores. She was the lone survivor of way back in issue 10. They went to that wellness retreat. That was kind of like the Goop conference with all these rich ladies with disposable income. And that's where the Lamia spores went wild. This lady was the one person that didn't take the vaccine from Pam. And her body beat the infection. However, it had left her scarred with these rashes and whatever. And, she has a little bit of power over them, but not really. She's not like a full Lamia zombie. But it makes Pam second guess all of her actions as well, because no matter what she did to try to control these spores, they still went wild. They still found a way into, this girl surviving. So they're still in there in some way. And yeah, so they end up going to Seattle. She has her whole group of the Order of Green Knights. She's in full Poison Ivy mode. And there's a standoff with her and the Gardener. And they have this discussion. It's very much of a battle of philosophies here. And Pam feels like she can reach through to the gardener by telling her, like, look, peace is less expensive than war, right? Me and you get on the same page. We stop this. We stop this feud with the green and the gray. Maybe they'll leave us alone to do what we need to do, and then we can go back and stop people from poisoning the planet. But it's very important to me. And she miscalculates because the gardener doesn't want that. She's like, no, you picked your side. I'm on humanity's side. If there's no Earth, there's no humans. I'm going to do what I need to do. And as the tensions are heightening, the two sides are at each other, the two sides of the Order of the Green Knight. Someone throws a rock and it all starts going. It becomes a full-scale riot. And they're all beating each other up. None of them's listening to Ivy. So Ivy finally activates her plant powers and separates everybody with these big green vines. It's all really cool. Takara's art is really shining here. And it starts to rain. And it gets very moody. And Ivy looks the gardener down in the face and is like, look, just join with me. And we'll be good. And the gardener's like, no, I'm not going to back down. You're a traitor. Me and you're enemies now. And Pam looks at her in the face and she grabs her hands and tells her, I'm not going to kill you, but I'm going to end this rivalry right now. And as she's holding hands, she says, I knew what I had to do instead. And the next panel is the gardener looking at her hands. And then this really trippy, psychedelic bunch of colors all going all over the gardener. And Ivy tells us through narration that, your body has this delicate balance of microorganisms. There's some fungus in there. There's some plants. It's all very small and minuscule. But I can talk to them. And I can use it to either heal or destroy. And essentially what she does to the gardener is she has made her so toxic that her touch will kill anything. So the gardener can't even garden anymore. If she touches plants, they'll die. If she touches animals, her own creation. And, now she'll, if she wants to do it alone, then she'll do it alone. And the issue ends with Ivy basically saying that sometimes you have to do evil things in the name of good. And some of those things that you'll never be forgiven for. And it ends with Gardner with her hands on her head going, what have you done to me? Look at me, come back. And just the rain coming down. And yeah, so Janet's still not doing well. We see here that she's lost the ability to walk through this riot. So like Peter Undine, the flower guy, picks her up. So I feel like there is going to be a major casualty, but it's not going to be here. I feel like it's going to be, if Janet represents Pam's ties to humanity, it's almost as if the more time Ivy spends around the humanity, the worse off they are, right? It feels like that's the undercurrent. And just the way that Takara is drawing Janet, she's starting to look more and more like a zombie. And not like a plant zombie, but like a zombie. Her eyes are getting darker, her skin's getting paler, and it's not looking good for her friend. And she's the one that's worried about Croc, because, they hooked up a couple issues ago, because Croc was the one person that she felt was paying attention to her and all this craziness. And now without Croc, she kind of is like, well, where do I stand in all this? But yeah, another really, really good issue. Nothing phenomenal. Still feels like we're chugging along to this confrontation with the Green and Pam. But Takara's art, again, at its high point. So all the stuff with the plant tendrils and like that psychedelic part, it's just one panel with the gardener, but it really comes and makes an impression. So I'm gonna give Poison Ivy an 8.
Okay. All right. Next up, we have Cheetah and Cheshire Rob the Justice League issue 1. This is Greg Rucka writing with Nicola Scott on the art. That is a team familiar to us from way back at the start of the show because they did Wonder Woman together.
Wonder Woman it was a year 1, right?
Yes.
Was that the title? Yeah.
It was the year 1 issues, the even numbered issues, I think that was, if I recall correctly. But yeah, first things first. This book starts, right? Obviously, it's a Cheetah and Cheshire book, and like if anyone else was making this book, I'd be like, okay, I'd be curious, but like I wouldn't be excited based on the premise. But I started this book, and like immediately, the first few pages, I'm like, Rucka just knows how to draw you in to a story, and just draw, like, it starts off, it's just the blood dripping on the floor, then there's a boot, and it's like we're at like a morgue, and the person's like thanking the coroner and paying him off and saying, hey, I'll be back again, and you just see like a bit of the body, it looks like it's been like, just bones are left of whoever was in this morgue. And it's like, what is this? And it's just, again, there's not a lot of dialogue, there's not a lot of speech bubbles, and the character's walking out in the rain with a hood up. We don't quite see who it is. But then they start to feel some hunger, and they start saying, damn you, not again. And then, 2-page spread, hood's off, it's Cheetah, lightning striking in the background, and she's cursing Targa for the curse of being a cheetah and all the rest of it. And like, so in the first 4 or 5 pages, it's like drawn me in with just atmosphere. Like, and that's obviously, it's both the writing and the art, because the art's phenomenal, and the detail is really selling everything. But Rucka just knows how to like shut up and let the art like tell the story, and there's time for dialogue later, and it just makes you really like this story. She grabs this teenager, whoever it is, that's walking past, and like gets in his face and like scares him, and he just kind of runs off when she turns around and starts yelling at the sky. But it's like, okay, this is interesting, and then it immediately cuts to like a science lab where it turns out to be Cheshire, although it's not like super obvious at first that it's her. Like, she's got the green fingernails, which is a hint for sure. But she kind of looks like a party girl, if anything. But she's like doing a test like on a rat, and the rat explodes into just like a pool of blood at the end. And it turns out that was her goal, and she kind of flirts with the scientist who let her use the lab. Like, she's just obviously she's smooshed her way in here and be like, oh, let me use your lab, handsome. I'll.
Right. So you said like, yes, Rucka can pull you in with like by being quiet. Yeah. But then he can turn here and do the opposite. And through her dialogue here with the guy with the tech, this is the most I think I've ever liked Cheshire. Because it instantly her personality comes through with the flirtiness, and he's looking at her, and she goes, "Oh, you might want to take care of that, right?" And looks down, towards his waist region, and then as she walks by, he says, "Think of me when you do," and just this sly smile as she walks by, and it's kind of the opposite of the Cheetah opening.
Oh yeah.
And they happen back to back, and you're just like, oh goddamn. This is a team that understands how comics work.
Yeah, but both characters just feel so fleshed out already, and just in terms of their personalities and in terms of like where they're coming from and how different they are. So the next scene is Cheshire's like robbing like a warehouse or whatever, and she's saying to the guards, "Hey, like none of you need to die. You can just leave. Like this doesn't need to happen." But they obviously they fight her anyway, so she starts like stabbing them and killing them, and some action takes place. And it's just Nicola Scott showing off, basically.
Yeah.
Fun stuff. But she gets up to the office, and Cheetah's already there holding the manager of this place by the neck. And there was a tea she was around as well. I think the first panel, she was like in the rafters, like in shadow, looking down at them. So it kind of hinted earlier on that she's here. But yeah, so, like basically, Cheetah just scratches this guy on the cheek. And that's all it is. But as they're walking away, you just like get the big splat sound effect in the background.
Yeah.
Whatever she made with the rat, whatever explosive poison she made, she's just put into this guy, and it's like darkly funny. It plays as a funny moment.
Yeah, because they're completely unbothered. They just walk by, and Cheetah kind of looks over her shoulder towards the window of the room that they just came out of in this warehouse. But yeah, just it's completely nonchalant.
Yep. So, and then I guess into the premise where they go for some food, and Cheetah notably has got her hoodie up the entire time because like, she can't really let herself be seen too much. And they're just catching up, and she's eating way more than Cheshire is because she's got this, appetite.
Hunger.
But yeah, Cheetah's like, yeah, or Cheshire's like, oh, so I assume there's a reason you came to see me, right? And, they're clearly friends, they reference old times and all that sort of stuff. But eventually she's like, yeah, I've got a job. And she's like, oh, really? I figured as much. She's like, well, go on, what job it? And I love that the page where she leans in and tells her is almost completely without speech. There's like there's just like two speech bubbles, right? So it's just a silent panel of them staring at each other wide. The window behind them, the rain outside. Cheetah leans in first, gives her the little finger to wave her in, and she leans in to listen. And then we get a close-up, very wide panel that's wider than the rest of the panels because there's gutters for the rest of them, but this one doesn't have gutters. It goes all the way to the sides. And the whisper is, we're going to rob the Watchtower. And then Cheshire just sort of sits back with a kind of surprised look in her face, and then the comedy beat at the end of the page is her saying, check, please. It's like, okay, no, you're crazy. Like that's like, that's psychotic. But then it flashes out, of course, when they're outside and they're talking about it. And she's like saying, yeah, like I've thought of everything. Yes, I know it's in space. I know the Justice League are up there. I know all these things. They referenced Wonder Woman at one point, which I really liked. It felt like Rucka went out of his way to like tip the hat to the Tom King run, because they mentioned like the Sovereign, and she is like, yeah, I helped, but the princess did her thing. So it's like, oh, Rucka's, like it's almost like, hey, the old Wonder Woman writers paying attention. Yeah, it's nice. So now, honestly, like, so I was digging this. I love the character dynamics, the convincing of the job, and it is just such a simple premise. We're going to go steal something from the Watchtower. The only thing, because it basically ends with her agreeing, and they're like, hey, we need to put a crew together, and that's what it ends on. But the one thing we've not mentioned yet is what they're stealing. And I don't really know what this is they're talking about. So Cheetah brings up the power box, I think she calls it.
Power bank. The
power bank. And they basically say it's a bank of all of the Justice League members' superpowers. And I don't really know what that means. Like, it's not like Superman can put his powers somewhere. Like he takes off a coat.
I'm wondering if it has to do with absolute power, right? And the Atom Project, where they were returning all the powers. And I wonder if it's this thing where it's almost like the way station for power, right? That when they all get mixed up, right? Like in We Are Yesterday, when Grodd ended up with Martian Manhunter's power, right? That power didn't go directly back to Martian Manhunter. The Atom came through, removed it from Grodd. It went back into Manhunter. I'm wondering if that's what the power bank's supposed to represent. It's like this thing where the powers get held, because that was one of our big problems with absolute power, was we didn't really fully get how Waller was stealing the powers.
Yeah.
Like, and getting them into the Amazos, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the only problem with that is that Cheshire literally says, like Superman, all his powers are in a box. Why would Superman's powers be in the box? He has all his powers right now.
That's true.
So what exactly this box is, as much as they say it, I still don't quite believe it's what they think it is, or there's like a layer to this that I don't quite get yet. But the other thing they tease at the end is like, hey, if this news is out here, we're not going to be the only ones trying to steal this thing. So maybe there's potentially some rival teams coming in. So as far as the first issue goes, I thought this was excellently paced. I thought it like drew me into the story with the atmosphere at the start. I like both the characterization of each character. It's darkly funny in places, like the way like she leans in, like says what she wants to do, and like Cheshire's reaction to it. The fact that both characters start with a ch sound is really throwing me here. I keep almost saying the wrong one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easy. If we just call them Jade and Barbara Ann, how about that? Right? Or that's their government names.
Or BA, as Cheshire calls her at one point.
Yeah.
Which, I'll be honest, you say BA, even though I never watched A-Team, I still think of BA Baracus.
I did too, and look, I love Barbara Ann, but I heard BA, and I said, I pity the fool who don't know who BA is.
I mean, honestly, she said BA, and it actually took me a second to like, wait, BA?
Yeah.
Oh, Barbara Ann, okay. Like, I had to think about it for a split second. I'm like, what does she mean, BA?
I was getting, as they're walking, and they're in their civilian clothes, right? And Barbara Ann's eating the hot dogs on the pier. Like, every time we kind of see her, she's eating because of the hunger. But I was just getting Ocean's 11 vibes, that every time you see Brad Pitt, he's eating, right? And it's a heist, and they're talking each other through it. And I was just like, God damn, Greg Rucka, you're giving me a book I didn't know that I wanted.
Yeah,
now here it is.
I'm getting the vibe, the reason why Cheshire wants this, the reason why Cheetah wants this, I just did it again. The reason why Cheetah wants this is because it ties into her hunger, and maybe she thinks she can like lift the curse, get rid of this, or do something with those powers. Like, I mean, I know making money's probably also part of it, but given the book literally starts with like how bad that hunger is, that she has to go to a morgue and pay off someone so she can eat some of the dead bodies because the hunger wants human flesh. And it reminds you throughout the issue with her eating at the restaurant, eating the hot dogs on the pier, even though they just had some dinner, or breakfast, because the sun's rising, I guess. But, like, it reminds you throughout the whole issue. So I have to assume, because Rucka is a good writer, that is going to tie into, like, her motivations for doing this throughout. So, yeah, it sets up an intriguing premise by the end, and I'm excited to see where it goes next. And Nicola Scott's art throughout is pretty beautiful, frankly. So
yeah, they work really well together. It's just a well done team. There's a confidence in the storytelling here.
Yeah.
Just the way that the characters interact, and there's the panel on the pier where they're talking about how much money it is, and it's just two of them right at the edge of the pier, and just the way that it flows with the dialogue. Right, it's just kind of the perfect panel for that kind of dialogue. So,
this is what this is always interesting when it happens, because whenever they announce a new book of some kind, and it's like a mini, and it's like some B character, C character, D character, this is what you hope for. And sometimes it's like a creative team you don't know, but you hope, maybe they're going to surprise us, and this is good. But this is one of these cases where these, they're not minor characters, but they're not characters who typically get their own books. This is a case where they've put a superstar team on a Cheetah in Cheshire book, and it feels like an A book as you're reading it. The storytelling quality, the characterization, the art quality, it feels like, hey, there's going to be a Cheetah in Cheshire book you can recommend to people in trade once it exists as a whole thing. In the same way that, Tom King gets handed sometimes like these obscure characters for his 12-issue books, and it's like, all of a sudden they've been elevated because they got one of these series. I mean, I think Cheetah's a pretty well-loved Wonder Woman character already. But I think both of these characters might even get a bit of a glow-up because they're just in a good book like this. And I'm excited to see how it plays out and what the reaction to it is. And I mean, I'm not surprised that it's great because it's Greg Rucka and Nicola Scott, but at the same time, I'm still getting into it with a little bit of just that little bit of doubt of like, but it's just a Cheetah in Cheshire book. Is this really what I want them to be doing? And by the end of the issue, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what I want them to be doing. Give me issue 2, please.
Just like, I feel like Greg Rucka is one of the few people that could go to DC and be like, I want to do a heist book. And like, all right, with Cheetah in Cheshire. Okay. Nicola Scott on art. All right. Like, I feel like there's not very many creators that can kind of go in and pitch something like this. And I'm glad he's around still, because I do miss reading Greg Rucka regularly, right? Because we're so DC focused, it takes up the majority of my time. I'm not reading much of anything else. And in fact, this made me want to go get caught up with Lazarus, his creator owned, because that's been a while since I've checked in on that. So, but yeah, I mean, and it's Barbara Ann, I was going to be here regardless. So, yeah, a whole lot of fun. I can't wait to see where this goes.
Yeah. All right, Matt, what are you giving Cheetah in Cheshire, Rob the Justice League?
9.
Say that, cut off.
Give us a 9.
Right, okay. Because it sounded like you said a different number there, and I wanted to double check. Yeah, 9 feels a bit right to me as well. It's just an excellent book. Like, I'm really happy to have this to look forward to now, as we go through it. And obviously, it is like a weird couple of characters to put a whole book around, and that's why it's only a 6-issue mini, most lately. I don't know if they confirmed that or what, but I'm assuming it is. So, yeah, cool. All right, next up, we have Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma, issue 5, Ram V writing, and Anand. Anandar. I'll just say Anandar. That's not. I won't try and butcher his name.
Anandar K is, I believe, how it gets.
Sorry,
Anandar K.
Yeah, yes. That's right. I knew it was abbreviated in some form. So, yeah, I mean, this book is wild every month, and I'm very sleep deprived, and this is the sort of book I worry about talking about when I'm sleep deprived, because I'm like, well, I form a coherent thought the entire time I talk about this. We'll find out. So this issue, obviously we teased Human Target at the end of the last one. And this issue, as Matt's knocking his camera about, this issue has kind of like him talking to Human Target and recounting some of the regrets that he has in his life. And they talk about regrets. He talks about how regrets are only kept because they're connected to memories worth keeping. Otherwise, they wouldn't be regrets. And, so it kind of gets into some of his, like, memories. And it really talks about this idea of, like, what has each of his lives mean and how much of it's important. Because ultimately, the plan that they've got in this issue to defeat the alternate future version of Resurrection Man, the hooded figure, whatever we want to call him, who is
Samsara,
constantly spying on him, who is, constantly knowing what he's going to do, is that Human Target's going to enact a plan that Resurrection Man himself does not know how it's where it's going to go. And part of that plan is going to be to remove all of his memories. And that's kind of like where this all goes. So he has a whole plan where he explains some of it to him, where it's like, hey, you had a job interview. Obviously, he didn't. I assume Human Target put on a mask and went and did it himself. But he's like, you had a job interview. You're going to work at this law firm in South Carolina. It's a whole thing. You're looking into these mob bosses. They don't like it very much. They're going to try and scare you, but ultimately they're going to come after you, and that's what they're going to do because you're sort of poking your nose where they don't want it. And this is going to lead, Resurrection Man stops him from talking here because, like, hey, I shouldn't know anymore. But the where it goes is that these mobsters blow up where he's working in order to kill him. And Human Target at that point takes over the role of Resurrection Man so that the hooded man, Samsara, is following and watching him. And instead, Resurrection Man is, basically taken to surgery in secret to get this procedure done to remove his memories of every life he's ever had. And there's a nice little point here where the surgeons doing the surgery don't know exactly who this is or anything like that. And they say, I don't see how he could survive this procedure. And one of them says, we were told not to worry about that. And that makes sense because he's going to come back. Yeah, this is probably going to kill him, but he's Resurrection Man, so who cares? But the other detail, and this is kind of like sweet in a way, is that he has the, I'm going to call it the cosmic cube. Like the cube that his missus made, the woman that he loved, and he stole it because it was too dangerous, all that stuff. He has that hidden inside his brain. Like it's put inside his brain, so he's got a part of her inside of him.
It's in his heart.
Oh, sorry, in his heart. It was inside his body, right?
Yes. Fair enough. Yeah. But still, the part that it's in his heart, because this is his one regret, right? Was stealing from her and her dying in the way that she did, and he's trying to remove all his regrets and all of this. So yeah, they got to there, and I was like, oh my god, this went wild. Yeah,
so that's happening, and that's real throughout. And obviously, Human Target's pretending to be Resurrection Man, and he's pretending to be homeless, and he's going through all this stuff. And Samsara comes to him and demands to know where the cube is and all that. And when he opens the little lockbox that he thinks it's in, it's actually just like a Resurrection Man keychain that's glowing. And this is when the Human Target pulls off the mask, and he's like, "What have you done?" Do you know what's so weird about this is that I'm saying all this stuff and it sounds quite crazy, but in a lot of ways, this is the most straightforward issue that this book's had. And some,
I kept waiting to get confused, but because at the beginning it's very the stuff that Ramvi's doing, it's you think that he's trying to hide something, right? That he's speaking almost in not like riddles or anything, but they're speaking around things. But then when you go back and talk about it and you realize where the issue goes, it is very straightforward. It's Human Target taking his place, right? And it's all set up, and you don't realize that, right? You don't realize that when Human Target's telling Resurrection Man, hey, you interviewed, you did this, you did that. And even Mitch Shelley, the Resurrection Man, tells him, I've never done anything of a job like that. I've never sat behind a desk. And Chance tells him, yeah, don't worry about it, right? And I thought it was just like hand-waving of stuff going on, right? But that's like, no, because Shelley's not doing any of this stuff. Christopher Chance is. Right. And so that's what it's going to go through. And then when we get to the whole reveal of him in the snow, it actually did take me a little bit by surprise. Because at that point, I was trying to figure out what the hell's going on with Samsara and the Techites and all this other stuff. I kind of forgot about the Human Target as a character being involved. So then it's revealed to him. I kind of had this haha moment. I was like, oh, of course. And yeah, so now I'm glad that we have another good human target story, right? So we have the Tom King one, and then we can point to this one, right? In this issue.
Yeah, I really liked kind of some of the art here. Like I think the almost the body horror of this medical contraption that Resurrection Man's put in that's holding his eye open, and there's all this like techno stuff all over his head. It just feels very like not even Clockwork Orange, it's more like Tetsuo the Iron Man or something like that. It's kind of wild. But I dig all that. I dig this idea of him questioning what makes a life and what makes a death, because by taking all of his memories of his past lives away, he is kind of like, in a way, really dying for the first time. Like, because if the memories are all gone, then that version of himself is kind of gone too.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really interesting thing to think about. But the only time it's really weird is when we go back to the the Nexus or whatever it's called, where all the gears with Samsara like debating with Resurrection Man. And he basically throws him into the gears, and the gears grind him because he's pissed now. And he's like, "I'll just go find another alternate version of Resurrection Man. I'll find more Mitch Shelley's. Like, I don't need you specifically." And he's like having these like memories of all the people that he's cared about. And then, is this the Phantom Stranger at the end of the issue who shows up?
That is him.
Yeah. And like sort of pulls him out of the gears and says, "Hey, the consumer's coming." The consumer obviously being that villain who's been eating everything and getting power. He's like, "Hey, the consumer's coming. The Great Devourer is what he calls him." Knocks upon the doors of this place. It's the last place in existence. It's now time to go and meet the end. And the last panel is him touching the scar over his chest, presumably right over where the cube is. I mean, honestly, like I said, in some ways this is the most straightforward because it's kind of the most basic plot. But that's not to say that it's bad or weaker than anything. If anything, it was almost like nice to have a more straightforward issue, just to sort of like get grounded a little bit and just kind of get into the meat of it. Plus, it was a good, like you say, it was a good human target story in that sense, because you're expecting the reveal to come at some point, like how they've tricked them, but you don't know exactly when it's coming, and it's satisfying because Samsara's like been so egotistical, a bit of a god complex, one might say.
Yeah, it's. I know you didn't watch this, at least I don't think you did, but all of Loki season 1, this is the plot of Loki season 1, just told in a much more concise story, told with Resurrection Man. That this big grand person that's lived through it all, who knows everything that you're gonna do, gets fooled, and that's what sets it off. So I just love how Ram V is able to make it such a joy to read, right? Because these are such big, heavy, subjects, and they're talking about destiny and what makes a life and all this other stuff. But then he's going to throw in this fun little subterfuge story in here at the same time. And and then that final, not the final panel, but on the last page of the Devourer coming, and it's just like this big cosmic entity that's heading towards, there's like this sense of doom here at the end. Man, it's just a very high quality read.
Yeah, like I said, art's very detailed throughout. Stuff like him like sinking into the sea of cogs and gears is a hell of an image. I think the stuff with all the medical apparatus towards the end when he's getting the surgery done is pretty like horrifying in a lot of ways. Like there's that big like 2/3 of a page panel where it's just basically open heart surgery, where they're all kind of like, there's like 5 doctors just around him all poking into him, and there's like tubes and cables going everywhere from his body. It's just like a really complex almost like the wires and cables feel like an extension of like vessels and veins and stuff like that. Like it's almost like a techno body horror kind of mesh that's going on. And body horror's been a big thing in this book because of the Devourer, right?
Yeah.
Like he's his whole thing's been devouring other people and taking their abilities and so on. So yeah, really like it. Really excited to see how he like tries to stop the Devourer and perhaps Samsara next. Maybe it'll stop the Devourer first, and Samsara is more the end game of the whole book. But excited to see where we're going with that.
Well, because if he stops the Devourer with like the Phantom Stranger, right, that kind of undercuts everything Samsara wants, because he wants to, stop that, right? Because that's the whole reason he's trying to get him to get the Keyverse, the thing that's in the heart.
Yeah.
Right? Wasn't it to stop the Great Devourer? So if he can do this on his own without all the things that the future version of him has done, that would kind of make the future version of him not exist. Right? So yeah. So I feel like he wouldn't like that either. So yeah, it's almost making himself in the future the big bad. So, but yeah, man. There's only one issue of this left, right? It's only 6 issues.
No.
No? Okay.
I'm sure it's 12.
Okay, because it feels like we're not quite there at the end yet. You know what I mean? I feel like there's so much more to touch on.
Easiest way is just to Google it, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Karma issue 7. Is there an issue 7? Oh, maybe there isn't. Maybe issue 6 is the last one.
I don't think so. Oh shoot! Well, then he's done a good job, because if he can wrap it all up in the next one,
I could have sworn this was going to be 12, but. Fair enough. Maybe I was hoping.
We didn't really talk news, but did you see the thing that Ram V was teasing on social media this week?
No.
A old school Sandman story of some kind. He just posted a picture of the Wesley Dodds mask in shadow with Jorge Fornes art. And if there was anything that immediately grabbed my attention, it's that.
I mean, are we sure it's Sandman and not My Bloody Valentine?
We're not, but the fact that, that Ram V, has a thing for a certain kind of story from like Vertigo, and Sandman Mystery Theater was a big Vertigo book. Like, if he's just, even if it's not a series, if it's just a story that Ram V's doing, I am so here for a Sandman story.
I feel like you went further with that explanation than you need to. You could have just said My Bloody Valentine's not a DC character and just left it at that.
True. I could have, but then, I wouldn't be me.
Yeah, that's very good. I mean, the art is, like I say, detailed, but it's also very moody. Like, those shots of Phantom Stranger towards the end just have this sort of sense of weight to them, where, like, it does feel like he's, like, really concerned, like, the world or the existence as a whole is about to end. So, points where points are due. Matt, what are you giving Resurrection Man Quantum Karma issue 5?
Yeah, that's a 9.5.
Ooh. I went with a straight 9 out of 10. It's amazing. It is amazing. But I don't know if it quite tickled my brain like the, say, issue like 2 did, for example.
Or I'm just happy to have another really cool Human Target story. So that gets an extra, 0.5 out of me.
Sure. All right. All right, next up, Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong 2, issue 3, Brian Buccellato writing with Christian Duce on the art. So I did not read this, and I think I'm realizing, because I remember I gave up on the second Santa book as well, is I'm realizing some of these like weird, like gimmicky crossovers are kind of fun, and the first one I think was mostly a good fun book. I think maybe I'm realizing that like when they do a sequel to them, I'm like, yeah, we already did the gimmick though, and it's lost it's like I just, this was the one that I looked at and went, I don't need to read this. Even the tease of maybe getting Ghidorah a few issues down the line is not enough to make me, I don't know, I just couldn't be bothered. But you read it, so go for it.
And look, you're not wrong in all of that. The gimmick is kind of fading. So this one opens with Harley Quinn in, the Monsterverse Earth, which I guess they're calling Earth Prime. And talking to a therapist, which ends up being Dr. Harleen Quinzel. So there's a real Dr. Quinzel in the Monsterverse universe that Harley has went to seek out to talk about her problems. And, she ends up arguing with her. She goes, there is no Joker in this world, and Harley says she's going to go find him with help from an old friend hinting about Batman or whatever. So it was a really weird way to start the issue. But then we immediately get into the Monsterverse stuff with this clan of apes that are in Hollow Earth with Superman and Lex, and they fight them off, but Superman's weakened because in Hollow Earth his powers aren't at full. And so one of the apes grabs him. He uses the frost breath. It lets him go. And then we cut over to Skull Island, where Barry and Batman are. And, this is another weird thing that happens here, is Barry's kind of like, I don't know if I can push myself. I got this concussion. And Bruce tells him, sit down. I'll do it myself. And he goes, you're a newlywed. You got Iris to go back to. And Barry's like, no, I'm the best person for this job. I have super speed. Even with a concussion, I should be doing this. And Bruce just looks at him as like, yeah, you're right. Go ahead and do it. So this whole thing about, Flash, you're not at 100%. You have a concussion. This is bad news. Was just, I guess, basically for nothing. Just to kind of show. And then Lex goes up and meets with, what's his name? The guy that killed Waller. I'm looking for it here. With Shaw.
So I was going to say Wyatt and Kurt Russell.
I kept trying not to say that. I kept not trying to say Wyatt and Kurt. But with Shaw. And they're in Hollow Earth, and they get up to this big, spire that has these blue flecks of radiation coming off of it. And Shaw wants Lex to extract this. We get over back to Flash. He's running around Skull Island. He, because he needs to get to Batman's mech, where there's some information that they need. And he gets shot by Cheetah. They fight, and then Kong comes up. And we get this really fun piece in the art where Kong's standing over them, and Cheetah goes into full scared cat, right? With the arched back and the hair standing up. It was worth a chuckle. But they end up communicating with the DC Earth and with Mr. Terrific, and they're going to open up the portal, and Kong's looking on through the other side, which is not good because now Kong's aware of this. And then the third part of the book, you have the Suicide Squad plus the what's the evil group called? Legion of Doom. They're all, they have Wonder Woman under. They have her held prisoner, and Peacemaker's talking a bunch of trash to her, being like, "Yeah, you think you're the biggest, toughest, but I took you out. You're nothing." They end up taking him to essentially their headquarters, which is the ship off the coast of Skull Island, and Wonder Girl, Supergirl has been chasing Wonder Woman, has been tracking him. And it's all been part of the plan for Wonder Woman to get onto the ship. So she snaps the cuffs, and they end up fighting. Giganta ends up growing, and Supergirl punches her, and there's a lot of fun back and forth. Black Manta jumps into the water to make his escape, and Supergirl and Wonder Woman now have cleared off all the bad guys. They find out there's a Monarch employee working there, which I can't remember if this is a character from the show, but her name is Jay Jorgensen. And they had her all tied up, and there's been a beacon that's been activated that's going to draw the Titans to their location. We get back to Superman in Hollow Earth. He sees there's an exit, one of the portals. He gets all of his energy. He exerts himself. He goes through, only to find Godzilla back on the other side. And it teases the next issue, calling rematch, where I don't think Godzilla and Superman are going to fight again. They've already done that.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of feeds into my feeling of this being a sequel and being a bit less interesting, is that, I mean, Superman and Godzilla fought, and they even, kind of came to fight together by the end. So, teasing a rematch at the end of an issue in this sequel isn't that exciting. It's just kind of
So, to go from reading Quantum Karma to this, which is so spacey. And like Quantum Karma has all these ideas about life and what's worth living, to this, which just is basically big monster smash. Like, look, those are two sides of my personalities. I just don't know what else this is serving besides just like, hey, look, it's superheroes with the Titans, with Godzilla, with Kong, and like, you know me, I love big monsters. I love King Kong. At this point, it feels like it's just treading water, and we're just doing like superhero-y stuff. And there was no other teases of any other fun, monsters. Like, I'd love for Mothra to get teased. There's nothing like that here. No other, no Scar King from GXK or anything like that. So it's really weird. And it's like, again, what is the purpose of this book? I mean, it's entertaining in the slightest sense of the word. But yeah, Shaw's just not like a fun villain. We don't have a lot of ties to him. The first book worked a lot because we had Luthor doing the Mecha Godzilla stuff and Waller doing the Suicide Squad things. But essentially, that's another part that I skimmed over, is that Waller's main plan was to titanize the Suicide Squad, so now she would also have big monsters in order to fight off the superhero threats or whatever, Suicide Squad's going to do. And that's a weak ploy through here with Shaw, because, like, what's Shaw going to want to do with that? I still don't know what his main purpose is besides, the mustache twirling kind of bad guy. So yeah, this is not that great. I'm probably going to keep reading it, though. Like, it's monsters. That said, from what you talked about with Justice Society, I probably should have read that a little bit more. So we'll see when it comes up, if it goes to vote or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of like a 5 out of 10. So yeah.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, all right. So everybody to patreon.com/MailFuzzTV can make me read a book of your choosing at one of the higher tiers. And I've been going through Planetary, of course. And next up is not the next issue of Planetary, but the Batman Planetary issue 1 special, which is about an annual-sized one-shot, effectively. So what we learned very early on, because the team arrived there, is that the world that Planetary is in has a Gotham. They go to Gotham City in their world, and it's apparently a shithole. Snow keeps
not surprised
how terrible it is, and everything. And there's some alternate versions of characters, like the two local Planetary office members who come out to greet them. One is Dick Grayson, who looks like a bit of a dweeb, and the other one is a guy named Jasper, who has green hair and a purple suit. So it's like, okay, all right, we got some weird alternate versions of some characters. But seemingly there's no Batman in this world, right? Nothing like that. But the city sucks. There's some jokes early on of Drummer looking at an alien porn channel on the TV with these signals and whatnot. But they're here because they're looking for this character named John Black, who is the son of two of the people who were in that that experimental prison camp that we did a couple issues ago, where people were being experimented on. And this kid, they have to find out this young man's what his powers are, and he's been kind of leaving a trail of bodies, and they're kind of weird. The second crime scene photo we see from Gotham here, that Dick puts up on the board, it looks like 3 people have all kind of merged together in a kind of very sort of body horror The Thing type way. And what's weirder is they all look like they're the same person. So the idea being that different versions from the multiverse have all kind of grotesquely merged together, and they've all died as a result. So interesting concept for a murder mystery, and a sort of weird like I say body horror type story. So they end up going down to where the crime scene was, and it's in a place called Crime Alley, because of course it is.
Oh boy.
So they make some jokes about it, all the rest of it, but they find this guy, John Black, snooping around, and they try and talk to him. He tells them to stay back, and very quickly he kind of lurches over in pain, and this shockwave bubble kind of erupts from him and hits the members of Planetary. And immediately they're like, wait, this is weird. These buildings look a little bit different. And Drummer's like, all the signals just changed. There's TV signals and stuff here, but they all just changed. some. So obviously, it's clear to the reader at this point that they've just went to a different Earth. And sure enough, they look up, and Batman is coming down from the rooftops above. Full page spread. There's Cassidy on art in this issue, so it's very clean and whatnot. So they're like, "What the hell is this? Who is this asshole?" And it's actually Chiquita who like tries to pick a fight with him, because they're like saying, "Hey, we were investigating these murders. Like this guy's this is our job to deal with them." And Batman predictably is like, "This is my city. He'll be dealt with here with me." So Chiquita like grabs like a bit of pipe off the wall and breaks it in half to turn into a weapon, and Batman like pulls out like these two big sort of like, how do you call them? They're basically bat swords. Like imagine giant batarangs that you'd hold at the bottom like they're a sword. And Chiquita says, "Tell me you're single." And it's basically this idea that Chiquita's kind of like gets into Batman as she's like fighting him, because the outfit and the vibes appealing to her. But the real gimmick of this issue though is the other two start chasing the character that they're after, this Jack character, and every so often he basically keeps doing these multiverse bubbles, so they keep shifting to different universes. And so Chiquita's fighting Batman, and this multiverse bubble happens, and there's some great art here actually where they're basically having a sword fight with two bits of pipe and his two bat sword things, and like there's a panel where it's just the shadows on the wall, and it's just like a really nice, it's just a really nice flowing, clean bit of art. There's a few pages in a row where there's like no words, no dialogue of any kind. It's just them fighting. So you get to really enjoy it. It's like kind of using its extra page count of the one shot to just enjoy the fight a bit. But as they're like clashing towards each other after two full page spreads of them charging, they get hit with a bubble, and immediately Batman turns in to the 60s Batman, like Adam West, and he starts talking like Adam West Batman, and Chiquita doesn't find this version as attractive. Right? So like he's so, but the idea is that in every universe they go to, whatever Batman they encounter is investigating these murders. These murders are happening in every universe, which makes sense because they're happening as a result of this multiversal thing happening, so it makes sense they would be. So it's kind of like these Batmans have all been fighting a version of Chiquita in some form, so they're never surprised to see her in front of them. But it's kind of weird. So he basically hits her with what? What does that say? Bat female villain repellent spray. And it's basically pepper spray, and she kind of like goes down a little bit. But again, multiverse changes again. Batman's like running up to snow, and when the multiverse bubble happens, it turns into Dark Knight Returns Batman. He's hulking, he's big, got the big chunky logo, and he's way angrier. He's grabbing Snow by the neck and all the rest of it. We get the Batmobile here and whatnot. So yeah, he's way more intimidating. He's way more kind of edgy, as you expect from that version. But again, bubble happens, and he turns into, like, I guess we'll call it the 70s Batman with the blue cape, right? So now he's going around like that, and he handcuffs the villain or the perp, and he's like, "No, this guy's going to Arkham. They'll figure out what's wrong with them. This is Gotham, my city, blah 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 blah," right? But there's a lot of little moments here where like they're trying to like argue with Batman and saying, "Hey, like whatever's going on here, it's because his parents were experimented on, and like he's not at fault here. He does have to pay for what he's done. There has to be consequences, but he needs to be helped." And there's just like these moments where it's the exact same panel of Batman that's silent, and then he says what happened to his parents, and it's like, oh, they're breaking through to him a little bit because they're talking about parenthood trauma, which Batman is well
steeped in.
Yeah, because there's a moment here where he considers maybe what to do when he's told that the parents were killed, and there's a silent panel and then a panel with some bubbles where he's like, doesn't matter, he has to be brought to justice, and they're like, yeah, but by us. And then bubble happens again, and it's like golden age purple glove Batman holding a gun, and he's like, crime doesn't pay, crime mustn't pay ever. And here, this is where like Drummer is feeling the vibrations of the ground, because again they're still in Crime Alley, and he's like, oh, there's something here, something in this alley is important to him. Like this is something to do with him, and it's almost like he shows the others, I think, because I think Jack sees it as well. But we see like just a little glimpse of the Wayne murders. It's not much, right? But what's really interesting about how they present it here, though, is that this Jack character is in the art as well. He's kind of like still like hunched over with his hands like handcuffed behind his back, and like the Wayne's murders playing out above him. This idea that he's experiencing it, and like you see the bullet going past Bruce's face. So Bruce isn't like standing where he usually is. He's like kind of like in the middle, which again, it's all just kind of a representation of like all this happening. And then Bubble has happened again, apparently, because now Batman's like, I don't actually know what this Batman's supposed to be. This last one, he's still got the ears of the Golden Age one, but he's got black gloves now, and he's, I'm not sure. Like I might have guessed Earth 1. But this was definitely before Earth 1 existed.
Before all of that, yeah. Well, you said purple gloves, right?
No, not anymore. That was before it was purple gloves. This is now black gloves, but you still got the ears that kind of go out a bit more like the Golden Age.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, not sure.
That's right after that, but yeah, huh.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a whole panel where you're standing above Jack, all intimidating. And this is where Elijah finally says, "You're not a cop, are you?" And I don't think vigilante is the right word either. But Batman's looking down at this kid, having also seen the memory of his parents die. And he's like, "Hey, how did your parents die?" And he says, "They were shot." And he turns to Snow and says, "What are your intentions?" And he's like, "Oh, the people he's killed, we have to like obviously deal with that. But his memories will give us vital clues to track down the people who experimented on them, that created him and put him in this position. They're the real villains here, and we need him to help him to find them." And Batman just kneels down and says, "It's your panic that's doing this. You've lost control. It's causing this rotation effect where you keep, having these bubbles. Like you're basically not dealing with your trauma, right?" And Jack looks up and says, "That was you, wasn't it, the little boy? How do you do it? How do you cope?" Batman takes off his cuffs, basically holds his hand, and says, "Do you remember your parents? Do you remember their smiles? Do you remember when they made you feel safe? Hold on to that and remember that you can give that to other people." And it's actually kind of this sweet, like, Batman, like, bit of advice by the end where he realizes this is someone else who has a traumatic backstory with their parents, and he's able to sort of stop looking at them just like the next criminal that needs to be taken down, and kind of like trust like Planetary to deal with it. Although, of course, before they go away with them, like, through the portal or whatever, or they bubble back to their own multiverse or their own universe, he basically says, "Hey, like, I don't care what Earth you're on. If you don't take care of this, I will come after you." Like, yeah, there's our Batman. There he is. So yeah. Anyway, and then the other thing he says that I really like as well is that, after he says the previous thing, he's like, "Hey, that's how you make the world make sense. And if you can do it, you can stop the world from making more people like us." And I really like that, because that felt like a very, like, heartfelt Batman thing to say, because it's, again, it ties into the whole, I don't want Dick Grayson to be like me, so I'm going to give him the strength and like guidance that I never had. Which is not to discount Alfred, but the idea that he can offer a very specific experience and perspective that Alfred couldn't. So, yeah. And Batman says, "And no one will have to be scared anymore." I kind of love that, actually. I think this is a really interesting line by Ellis. This idea that despite the fact that Batman uses fear, the end goal is that no one will have to be afraid anymore is kind of poignant. So, for a book that had nothing to do with Batman and just does this one Batman crossover issue, it felt like it really kind of nailed a really cool side of the character that felt like it landed quite nicely. And it helped this character who has nothing to do with DC, really. Obviously, they've crossed over a bit more because we had that Outsiders book, but
yeah.
So yeah, they bubble back to their reality. Batman makes his threat, and Chiquita has to throw in a dig as she's leaving, saying, "I totally beat you up." And then they end up back in their Earth. And it just ends with Elijah saying, "Yeah, this town's insane, I told you." I I mean, this was pretty good. Like, honestly, when I obviously the fact that it's written by Ellis is means that it still feels like planetary, so that's good. But you know, like it did sound a bit gimmicky, in some ways. You know, just like the title, I was like, oh, they did a Batman like crossover special. That's kind of weird. But honestly, it kind of works. One, because I think they actually handle the Batman side of it really well, and I think what he says, his advice by the end, is quite touching. But I think Ellis being the one that writes it means that it still feels like planetary, and it still feels like it's playing into what's going on. Well, I'm sure the main book would still make sense if I hadn't read this. The fact that this is, you know, like the child of like the victims from that camp, who they've now got, and is going to help lead them to the people responsible, does feel like a vital part. That is, you know, I'm glad I did read this because it does think, you know, it feels like it plays into what's going on. But I think what makes it work is that the whole idea of this character and the idea that he's like basically his stress and trauma is causing him to like cause multiverse rifts, and he's breaking through into other universes. Using a famous character like Batman to show that is really smart, because if they tried to do this with an original character who we didn't know, it wouldn't be as obvious what's happening. We would, you know, it'd be like, oh, like this character's changed, but with Batman, it's like, oh, this is this Batman, and this is this Batman. Like, you're constantly going, yep. I get this. I get that we're going through a multiverse. We're doing all the alternate takes, and it makes complete sense. It's almost like it's borrowing Batman for an issue to use comic book language to make it easily to understand what this character's going through. So as a shorthand, and I think that's actually quite smart. It's like using a tool that they borrowed basically. They needed a specific screwdriver for the job, so they went to the neighbor and said, "Hey, can we borrow it?" And you know, sure enough, the screw went in without a hitch.
And the last issue was the one that was kind of about the Justice League, right? It was the Green Lantern character, the Superman, and the Wonder Woman.
Right, yeah.
So Ellis was already in that vibe of comic books as pop culture for planetary to use. So to use Batman and what that represents and Gotham in that world, right? So that's pretty cool. Yeah.
Also, notably, the Gotham of planetary, at least at the end, I'll go back to the start and see if it's there as well. But it's got a red sky. I just thought that was an interesting touch because, you know, crisis.
Yeah.
Paid for a crisis. So, no. Actually, also, there's an interesting reference at one point. I don't know what page it's on. I'd have to find it to, like, be specific. But, where Elijah mentions, like he sort of saw some multiverse stuff happen before, and he specifically, like, says 1985 or 1986. And I'm like, oh, he's talking about the crisis. Like, he's talking about Crisis on Infinite Earths. He talks about how, like, you know, like the worlds merged together and they all existed as one world for a bit, and I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's an Infinite Earths reference. So that's curious. But it does establish that planetary, while it might not be the DC universe, it is in the DC multiverse. That's what this issue is established. So I don't know how much of a relationship the publisher had with DC at the time. Clearly it was all right because they had a Batman crossover. So there you go. Because I don't think they owned them yet, right?
No, but I think Wildstorm at that point had a very friendly, because if it was Jim Lee.
Yeah, true.
Because this is late 90s still, right?
No, I think this is the start of 2000s, I want to say.
Start of 2000? So I feel like the Wildstorm sale happened in like 04?
So this is maybe
04?
That's maybe like a year or two before that then.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe things were on the upswing with them, and that's what led to it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just... Yeah. No, it was an interesting issue. Like, I thought it might be gimmicky, but it used Batman in a smart way, both like in terms of like a character and what he says and the advice he gives, but also just using the idea of Batman as a tool to make it clear that we're doing all this like universe hopping. So, and yeah, the character still felt true to who they were because it's still the same writer. Yeah, art really solid, does a good job of all the different Batmen. You get exactly which all of them are supposed to be for the most part. I didn't know who the last one was meant to be, but I don't know if that's just because it's not meant to be a specific one and it's their own take on it, or I'm just not as familiar with this costume design. But either way, very, very good. So I'll give that a solid 8 out of 10. I think it was a smart use of the guest character. So Excited to get back to the next main issue of the book. And, it was like a double-sized issue, but to be honest, I never really even felt it. It flowed so smoothly that I never felt like the page count bearing down on me. So that's always nice as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that'll take us out to the final part of the show, where we pick our best moment of the week, best cover, best art, and of course, do our top 5 of the books. So, Matt, what was your panel/moment of the week?
All right. So thinking about it while you were discussing Planetary Batman, this week had a lot of good ones, but I narrowed it down to 3. One's from Poison Ivy when Pam grabs Gardner's hands, and then it leads to that kind of psychedelic-y page where she gets, the biotoxin powers, for lack of a better term. That's up there. Absolute Superman, the moment where we see him for the first time, and the cape kind of looks like angel wings. That was a real cool moment. And then in Birds of Prey, when Barda gets the Mega Rod and laughs like a maniac. And all 3 of these moments have some of my favorite characters, so it was a tough decision. But if I am picking just one for this week, it's going to be Barda, because I think that's a real good feel-good moment, right? She's been under Ink's control because she's surrounding her body, and then she gets that Mega Rod, and all hell breaks loose. Now they have a fighting chance. So that one's mine.
Yeah, there's a few things I could pick. I think there's a bunch of good stuff in Batgirl. Absolute Green Lantern has that moment where the lantern's rising up and the chase is going on. That's a really fun sequence. I think I'm gonna go with Cheetah and Cheshire though. The page where she tells her what the job is, where it's mostly silent and they lean in. It's paced really well, so you can feel the silence as they're getting close together before she whispers what it is, and then the check please is the comedic payoff to it all. Just expertly done page of a comic book. So that's my pick. For cover of the week, there's a bunch of options. I think the main cover for Cheshire and Cheetah and Cheshire's solid. That was pretty good. There is a Federici cover for Godzilla Kong? Well, I didn't read that book, but that cover, Federici drawing Godzilla, is definitely something that I'm not mad about. So I'll mention
that was a book I didn't look at, so now I have to go see this.
Yeah. And there's a Redondo cover for Birds of Prey with Canary sitting sort of looking kind of tired. There's the punching bag in the foreground. Main cover for Batgirl solid. I like the Turso Khan's Green Lantern, Absolute Green Lantern cover, which is cool, very detailed. My pick of the week though is going to be the variant for Resurrection Man Quantum Karma though, which is the Steve Beach variant. Which looks gloriously painted, but it's also so disgusting because you've got the mouth of the Devourer at the top and bottom, like the top and bottom set of teeth. You've got all these like black gooey like pipes and hoses like going in, which kind of ties into the medical stuff that happens. And you've got just Resurrection Man in the middle as if he's on the table, but you've got kind of almost like a playing card thing where like upside down you've got the Samsara, the future one. So just it looks beautiful. It's got a great design, and I like the sort of black and red kind of main color scheme of it. So that's my pick of the covers. What you got, Matt?
Right. So I also like that Birds of Prey. I'm trying to blank now.
Redondo.
I'm new to that one. The Redondo one with Canary sitting on the fighting, like the boxing stool in the gym. That one's good. Absolute Superman has a Turso Khan variant that I like. That's got, it makes like a triangle, and it's got Superman in the middle, with a city below him, and it's all done in oranges, and it looks really cool. My cover's going to be from Absolute Green Lantern, and it is the Alex Ekman Lawn variant, and it's got like this weird kind of cutout quality to it, where it has Abin Sur in the foreground, with the arms and the long head tail, right? And then behind him's got Joe reaching up in just green. And then that black circle with the white ring around it in the background. And it's a really stark cover. It kind of hits on all the themes that we talked about in it. So that one's going to be mine.
Yeah, cool. What about art of the week?
Tough, right? We got Batgirl. No, that one's good. Big fan of Takara for Poison Ivy. Right. Resurrection Man, real solid. And on RK, always good. But come on, it's Nicola Scott in Cheshire and Cheetah. Cheetah and Cheshire robbed the Justice League.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's great to have Nicola Scott back, and I did love the art in that book. But there is stiff competition. I mean, I think Miyazawa on Batgirl and Anand RK on Resurrection Man really stick out as being like fantastic. And there's other good art as well, but those are the two that I feel like are most fighting Nicola Scott. And I get the idea of, we've not seen Nicola Scott in a long time, so you kind of want to give it to her, and I kind of do, but I also think that arguably Resurrection Man's a little bit more, like, I don't know, just kind of otherworldly, which gives it such a vibe. And then Batgirl's just so well crafted with the way the angles of the panels and everything just really help everything. I think I'm going to edge it out to Resurrection Man, Quantum Karma, but it's, you know, those three are all duking it out very close together, so no losers here. Spoiler for choice this week. All right, Matt, what are your top 5 books of the week?
All right, so number 1's going to be Cheetah and Cheshire, Rob the Justice League. 2 is Resurrection Man. 3 is Batgirl. 4 is Birds of Prey. And 5 is Poison Ivy, right?
Really? Oh,
yes.
No,
Ivy
no
just knocks out
books
Superman.
For Matt,
no,
week.
but not for, you know, lack of quality. They were all up there.
Yeah. I mean, my list is going to be mostly similar, I think. Number 1's Cheetah in Cheshire. Number 2 is Resurrection Man. Number 3 is Batgirl. 4 is Absolute Green Lantern. So change it a little bit. And then 5 is... Oh, I'm kind of stuck between 2 here at the bottom. This is tough. They're really close. I think I will give it slightly to Absolute Superman over Birds of Prey. Like, those were the 2 I was debating for the 5th spot. But I think I'm going to edge it out to Superman, but just by a smidge. Like, I really like Birds of Prey as well. So, but cool. All right. So that is that. I will tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics, dear listeners, who are all racing to give us 5 stars on your podcast app of choosing. So next week we have Action Comics 1089, we have Batman and Robin 24, Batman Dark Patterns issue 9, Supergirl issue 4, Green Lantern Corps issue 7, Aquaman issue 8, we have Superman The Kryptonite Spectrum issue 1, which I know people are hyped for that because they like the Milkman series that the team did. Can't say I read that, so I have no expectations for this, but we'll see. Batman Gotham by Gaslight, A League for Justice issue 2. There's also Trinity, Daughter of Wonder Woman issue 3. Fire and Ice, When Hell Freezes Over issue 5. And then there's facsimile editions and whatnot as per usual. So that is what's coming out next week. So there you go. And yeah, there'll be at least one Patreon book, I expect. In fact, me and Matt, I think, have both been enlisted to read the same book together. Someone's really determined to get us to read a certain book, so that'll be a thing. But yeah, so we'll get into it. But yeah, that's the show, everyone. So like I said earlier on, the vote winners for the Patreon thing, and you can support us over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. You get the show a little bit early. The time varies wildly depending on when we finish recording, how long it takes to like render and edit and all that. But typically it'll be there Sunday morning for you, as opposed to wait until the release time on Sunday. And you also get now the chance to vote every month on an issue for the show once per month, where it'll be either a show you're saving or maybe some issue ones that we weren't too hot about, but you can have a say in which one we read. And starting this month as well, there'll be an exclusive series just for patrons and soon YouTube members, where we're working through Batgirl Year 1, which was voted for as well by patrons. So there'll be the first issue of that sometime in August. But that is that. You can go support us that way. You can like, subscribe, rate us 5 stars. All those things do help. lift that average up for us. But that is the show. That has been Comics From The Multiverse. Thank you very much for joining us. We do appreciate it. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.